The Hawaiian sun blazed overhead as I smoothed down my dress and walked toward the pristine white chairs arranged on the beach. 200 guests had already taken their seats, waiting for my sister-in-law Madison's grand entrance. I scanned the rows looking for my assigned spot, but something was wrong. Every chair was filled. Then Madison appeared beside me in her $20,000 gown, her smile sharp as broken glass. "There's no seat for you, Andrea," she announced loudly. "Lowborn blood is different from ours." My husband Ryan stood nearby with his parents and brother, and they all snickered at her words. I looked at each of them, memorizing their cruel smiles, then said simply, "I understand," and walked away. They had no idea that I, not Ryan, had paid for every single detail of this wedding. 6 months earlier, the Patterson family had gathered at their sprawling Connecticut estate to celebrate Madison's engagement to Derek Whitfield. The 12-bedroom colonial house buzzed with excitement as relatives arrived in their luxury cars, each one eager to hear about the upcoming society wedding. I sat quietly beside Ryan on an antique sofa, while his mother Patricia held court her pearl necklace, catching the light from the crystal chandelier. "Derek comes from such a distinguished family," Patricia gushed, adjusting her designer blazer. "His grandfather was a senator, you know. This union will be magnificent for the Patterson name." Madison swept into the room wearing a silk dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her engagement ring, a 4-carat cushion-cut diamond, sparkled as she gestured dramatically. "I've already started planning. We're thinking Hawaii, the Royal Pacific Resort. Only the best for a Patterson wedding." "How wonderful!" Ryan's father, Richard, boomed from his leather wingback chair. "Ryan here will ensure everything is perfect. Won't you, son? After all, you're the family's golden boy, our star investment banker." Ryan puffed up with pride, straightening his shoulders. "Of course, Dad. Nothing but the best for my little sister." I shifted uncomfortably, knowing the truth that none of them suspected. Ryan had been unemployed for 2 months, leaving the house each morning in his suit and spending his days at coffee shops, too ashamed to admit he'd been laid off from Wellington Financial. But here, surrounded by his family's expectations, he played his part perfectly. "The wedding will probably run around $300,000, Madison said casually, as if discussing the weather. "The venue alone is $75,000 for the weekend buyout. Then there's catering, flowers, the designer dress appointments in New York." "Whatever you need," Ryan said immediately. "I'll handle it." Patricia beamed at her son. "This is why Ryan has always been my pride and joy. So successful, so generous. Unlike some people who marry into families hoping to climb the social ladder." Her eyes flicked to me briefly, a look I'd grown accustomed to over our 5 years of marriage. Ryan's brother James chuckled from across the room. "Remember when Ryan told us he was marrying Andrea? We thought he was joking, a scholarship kid from Nebraska." Now, Richard said with false magnanimity. "Ryan's little housewife has adjusted well enough to our lifestyle. Haven't you, Andrea?" "It's Andrea," I corrected softly, though I knew he'd been getting my name wrong deliberately for years. "Of course, dear," Patricia said dismissively. "Why don't you go check on the catering? I'm sure the kitchen staff could use some supervision." I stood to leave, catching the smirk Madison threw my way. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard them resume their conversation about Yale connections and country club memberships, Ryan's voice the loudest among them. That night in our bedroom at the estate, Ryan finally dropped his mask. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. I sat beside him, placing a gentle hand on his back. "You need to tell them the truth." "Are you insane?" He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "You saw how they were tonight. My dad would disown me. My mother would have a stroke. And Madison... God, I already promised to pay for the wedding. Ryan, you can't fund a $300,000 wedding with money you don't have." He was quiet for a long moment, then turned to me with a calculating look I'd never seen before. "But you have it." "What?" "Your company, TechFlow Solutions. I know you just landed that government contract. The business is doing well, right?" I stared at him in disbelief. You want me to pay for your sister's wedding, the same sister who treats me like garbage? It would just be temporary, he said quickly. I'll get another job soon, probably something even better than Wellington. I'll pay you back. And eventually, when things settle down, I'll tell my family the truth about everything. But right now, I need this. We need this. Please, Andrea. You know what happens if they find out I'm unemployed? They'll cut us off completely. No more family dinners, no more holidays, no more anything. Is that what you want? I thought about all the times his family had made me feel small, worthless, unwelcome. Part of me wanted to say, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. But I looked at Ryan, the man I'd fallen in love with in college, back when he was different, back when he defended me against anyone who looked down on my background. Somewhere inside this desperate person was still the boy who'd loved me, for who I was not, where I came from. Fine, I said finally, but we do this my way. Every payment goes through my company accounts. I want documentation for everything, and Ryan, you have to promise me that you'll tell them the truth when the time is right. I promise, he said, pulling me into a hug. You won't regret this. I'll make it up to you, I swear. Once I'm back on my feet, I'll tell them everything. They'll see how amazing you are, how you saved our family's reputation. They'll finally accept you. Even as he held me, I wondered if I was making a terrible mistake. But I loved my husband, flawed as he was, and I wanted to believe that underneath his family's influence, he was still the man who'd chosen me over their objections all those years ago. So I agreed to fund Madison's wedding, having no idea I was financing my own humiliation. The next morning, I set up a meeting with my CFO, Janet, to arrange the payment structure for the wedding expenses. My office at TechFlow Solutions overlooked the Hartford Business District, a far cry from the trailer park in Nebraska where I'd grown up. I'd built this company from nothing, starting with freelance coding jobs in college and growing it into a multi-million-dollar software firm. You want to route $300,000 through the company for what? Janet asked, her eyebrows raised. A family obligation, I said carefully. I need everything documented, every receipt, every invoice. Set up a separate account just for these transactions. She nodded slowly. And Ryan's family doesn't know the money is coming from you. It's complicated, I admitted, but I need this to remain confidential. Over the following weeks, Madison's demands began pouring in. She'd text Ryan constantly, and he'd forward them to me with apologetic emojis. The first major expense was the venue deposit of $25,000. Then came the wedding planner fee of $15,000. The photographer commanded $12,000, and that was with the family discount Madison had negotiated. The catering has to be Jean-Philippe, Madison announced during a planning session at the Patterson estate. She'd invited Ryan and reluctantly me, though she directed all her comments to her brother. He's the only chef on the East Coast who understands true French cuisine. His base price is $400 per plate. I did quick math in my head. $400 times 200 guests meant $80,000 just for food. That seems excessive, I ventured. Madison's head snapped toward me, her eyes cold. I wouldn't expect someone with your simple tastes to understand. Where did you have your wedding reception again? The Marriott. She laughed a tinkling sound devoid of warmth. This is a Patterson affair. We have standards. Patricia nodded approvingly at her daughter. Exactly right, darling. Quality speaks for itself. She turned to me with false concern. Don't worry yourself about these details, Andrea. Why don't you take notes instead? Make yourself useful. I bit my tongue and opened my laptop, creating a spreadsheet to track the mounting expenses. Ryan sat silent beside me, scrolling through his phone, pretending to check important emails from his non-existent job. As the weeks progressed, Madison's demands grew more extravagant. The flowers had to be flown in from Ecuador. The wedding dress required 3 trips to Kleinfeld in New York with first-class accommodations each time. The bridesmaid dresses were custom, Vera Wang. Every single detail had to be perfect, which in Patterson language meant expensive. I need an additional $50,000. Madison announced one afternoon, calling Ryan while I was in the room. for transportation and guest accommodations. We can't have people staying at some random hotel. I've reserved a block at the Four Seasons." "Of course," Ryan said smoothly. "I'll transfer it tomorrow." After he hung up, he turned to me with pleading eyes. I nodded wearily and made a note in my spreadsheet. We were now at 200,000 and climbing. What Ryan didn't know was that I'd hired a forensic accountant to review our joint finances. That's how I discovered he'd been using my business credit cards for more than just wedding expenses. There were charges at exclusive golf clubs, expensive restaurants, where he took potential employers to lunch designer clothing to maintain his image. In 3 months, he'd spent an additional $40,000 pretending he still had his 6-figure salary. "We need to talk," I told him one evening, showing him the credit card statements. His face went pale. "I can explain. Those lunches were networking opportunities. I can't show up to interviews looking desperate. You know how these people think. Image is everything." "Image," I repeated flatly. "You're spending money we don't have to maintain an image for people who don't even know the real you." "That's rich," he snapped. "You're funding my sister's wedding. How is that different?" "Because I can afford it," I shot back. "Because I'm not lying about where the money comes from. Because I'm not pretending to be something I'm not." He softened, then reaching for my hand. "You're right. I'm sorry. This is just temporary, I promise. Once I land a new position, everything will go back to normal. Better than normal. My family will finally see what an incredible woman you are." But even as he made these promises, I could feel the distance growing between us. The man I'd married was disappearing, replaced by someone who cared more about appearances than truth. Still, I continued funding the wedding, watching the expenses mount, while Madison and Patricia treated me like an incompetent servant. During one particularly humiliating planning session, Madison had me running samples of ribbon between vendors, while she and Patricia sipped champagne and critiqued my choices. "The pearl white is too common," Madison said, barely glancing at the ribbons I held up. "And the ivory is too yellow. Honestly, Andrea, don't you have any sense of color distinction?" "She's doing her best," Patricia said with false sympathy. "Not everyone was raised with an eye for quality. Right, Andrea?" I wanted to tell them that I'd grown up distinguishing between different shades of desperation, that I knew the exact color of unpaid bills and the hue of working 3 jobs to pay for college. Instead, I smiled tightly and made notes about ordering Swiss satin ribbon at $200 per roll. By the time we reached the 4-month mark before the wedding, I'd paid out $250,000. My company was doing well, but this was eating into my reserves. Ryan showed no signs of finding employment, though he maintained an elaborate charade of interviews and meetings. "Maybe we should scale back some of the expenses," I suggested one night. "Are you kidding?" Ryan looked at me like I'd suggested canceling Christmas. "We're so close. Madison's counting on this. My whole family is watching. I can't back out now." So I kept paying, documenting every expense, building a paper trail that told the story of my generosity and their greed. I had no idea then how important those documents would become, or how much I'd need them when the time came to reveal the truth. 3 months before the wedding, I was working late at my office when an email popped up in my inbox. The sender was Harold Fitzgerald, senior partner at Fitzgerald & Associates, the Patterson family's law firm. My finger hovered over the delete button, assuming it was spam, but the subject line made me pause. "Re-post-nuptial agreement. Confidential." I opened it and felt my blood turn to ice. "Richard, as discussed, I've drafted the preliminary post-nuptial agreement for Ryan. This should adequately protect Patterson family assets from any claims by his current spouse. Given her company's recent success, it's crucial we act before any community property claims could be made. Ryan assured me he can get her to sign without much resistance. We should move forward quickly, ideally before Madison's wedding, when family emotions will be running high." The email was clearly meant for Ryan's father, not me. My hands shook as I read it again, then forwarded it to my personal attorney before calling her immediately. "Sarah, I need you to look at something," I said when she answered. 20 minutes later, she called back. "Andrea, this is serious. They're planning to have you sign away rights to your own company. Have you and Ryan discussed divorce?" "No," I said numbly. "At least I haven't. I think you need to do some investigating, and whatever you do, don't sign anything without me present." That night I pretended to be asleep when Ryan came home. I listened to him moving around the bedroom, humming softly, completely unaware that his perfect facade was cracking. The next morning, after he left for his fake job, I went through his home office. What I found made me sick. Hidden in a locked drawer were notes from meetings with 3 different divorce attorneys. There were financial assessments of my company, evaluations of our joint assets, even a private investigator's report on my daily routines. The most damning document was a handwritten timeline in Ryan's writing: post-wedding 2 months, file 6 months. Estimated settlement with TechFlow shares 8 to 12 million. I photographed everything my hands steadied despite the rage building inside me. Then I carefully returned each document to its place and locked the drawer. That evening, I confronted him, though not with what I'd found. "Your dad's lawyer sent me an email by mistake," I said casually over dinner. "Something about a post-nuptial agreement." Ryan choked on his wine. "What? That must be a misunderstanding." "Really? Because it seemed pretty clear. Something about protecting Patterson assets from claims by your current spouse." He set down his fork, his face cycling through expressions like a broken slot machine. "Okay, look, my dad has been pressuring me. You know how he is about family money. He's paranoid about protecting the estate." "What estate?" I laughed bitterly. "The house is mortgaged to the hilt. Your trust fund ran out 2 years ago. What exactly are they protecting?" "It's not about current assets," he said quickly. "It's about future inheritance. Madison's marrying into the Whitfield family. There are going to be business opportunities investments. Dad wants to make sure everything stays in the family." "And I'm not family." "You know that's not what I mean." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "This is just paperwork to keep my parents happy. It doesn't mean anything." "Then you won't mind if I have my lawyer review it." His face darkened. "Why are you making this difficult? Can't you just trust me?" "Like you trusted me when you told your family about losing your job." "That's different." "How?" I stood up, my voice rising. "How is lying to your family for months different from planning a divorce behind my back?" "I'm not planning anything," he shouted. "God, you're so paranoid. My family was right about you. You can take the girl out of the trailer park, but—" He stopped, his face going white as he realized what he'd said. "Finish the sentence," I said coldly. "Your family was right about what—" "Nothing. I didn't mean that." "Yes, you did." I walked to the door, then turned back. "I'll keep funding your sister's wedding, but things between us are going to change." "Andrea, please." "I need some air," I said and left. I drove to my office and spent the night on the couch staring at the city lights and wondering how I'd been so blind. The boy who'd defended me in college was gone, replaced by a Patterson clone who saw me as nothing more than a bank account with an unfortunate past. The next morning, I made 2 decisions. First, I would continue paying for the wedding, but now with full knowledge of what was really happening. Second, I would protect myself and my company at all costs. I met with Sarah to discuss options. "If he's planning what I think he's planning, you need to be prepared," she said. "Document everything. Record conversations if you can. And whatever you do, don't sign anything." That afternoon, Madison called with more demands. "I need another $50,000, she announced, without preamble. "The wedding favors have to be Tiffany crystal. Each guest gets a commemorative piece." "That's a lot for favors," I said mildly. "Excuse me." Her voice dripped with disdain. "Are you questioning my choices? Someone who grew up in a trailer park wouldn't understand proper gift-giving etiquette. Just have Ryan transfer the money." "Of course," I said sweetly. $50,000 for crystal trinkets, got it." "They're not trinkets," she snapped. "And honestly, I don't know why Ryan keeps you involved in this. You clearly don't have the breeding to understand quality." After she hung up, I added the expense to my spreadsheet and made a note: Madison insults trailer park reference 47. I'd been keeping count along with recordings of our conversations. My phone had become my constant companion, capturing every slight, every insult, every moment of cruelty. That weekend, at yet another Patterson family gathering, I watched my husband perform for his relatives like a trained SEAL. He regaled them with stories of big deals and important meetings, all fiction. His mother praised his business acumen, while his father clapped him on the back, proud of his successful son. "Ryan's always been special," Patricia told her sister. "Not like James, who had to marry that real estate heiress for her money. Ryan made his own fortune." I excused myself to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror, studying my reflection. Designer dress, expensive jewelry, perfect makeup. I looked the part of a Patterson wife, but underneath I was still that girl from Nebraska who'd fought for everything she had. And now I was going to have to fight again, this time for my dignity and my future. When I returned to the party, Ryan was showing off his new watch, a $30,000 timepiece he'd bought with my money. Madison was describing her honeymoon plans, a month-long tour of Europe's finest hotels. The entire family basked in their perceived superiority, never suspecting that their golden boy was a fraud, and their lavish lifestyle was funded by the very person they looked down upon. I smiled and played my part, the dutiful wife, the helpful sister-in-law, the quiet outsider who knew her place. But inside, I was planning. Every insult was fuel. Every slight was motivation. They thought they were so clever, planning to use me and discard me like trash. They had no idea what was coming. 2 months before the wedding, the Patterson family hosted their annual spring dinner at the estate. This wasn't just any gathering, but a formal affair where Richard invited his business associates and Patricia showcased her social connections. The guest list read like a who's who of Connecticut society, and I spent days preparing for the subtle warfare that these events always became. I chose my outfit carefully, a navy dress that was expensive enough to avoid Patricia's criticism, but understated enough to prevent accusations of trying too hard. Ryan adjusted his cufflinks nervously as we drove up the winding driveway. "Remember," he said, "Senator Whitfield will be there tonight. Derek's grandfather. We need to make a good impression." I glanced at him. Since when do they care about the impression I make? "Don't start," he muttered. "This is important for Madison, for the family." The estate glowed with soft lighting and valets took cars at the entrance. Inside the foyer buzzed with conversation and the clink of champagne glasses. Patricia swept toward us in a beaded gown, her smile brightening considerably when she saw Ryan. "There's my successful son." She air-kissed him, then turned to me with noticeably less warmth. "Andrea, how nice that you could make it." "It's Andrea," I corrected for the 100th time. "Of course, dear. Why don't you check with the kitchen staff? Make sure they have everything under control." She steered Ryan away before I could respond. "Come, darling. The Whitfields are dying to hear about your latest acquisition." I made my way through the crowd, catching fragments of conversation about stock portfolios and yacht clubs. In the dining room, Madison held court with her bridesmaids, all daughters of Patricia's country club friends. She spotted me and waved me over with a false smile. "Andrea, perfect timing. We were just discussing the bachelorette party. Paris, of course. The Hotel Plaza Athénée for a week." She turned to her friends. "Ryan's generously covering everything. Isn't it wonderful having a brother who can afford such luxuries?" "Must be nice," one bridesmaid said, eyeing me with curiosity. "What does your family do, Andrea?" Before I could answer, Madison laughed. "Oh, Andrea doesn't come from money. She's what my mother calls new to society. Her family is, what's the polite term, working class?" "I prefer the term hard-working," I said evenly. "Of course you do." Madison's smile could have cut glass. "Anyway, girls, let's discuss the spa treatments. I'm thinking the full luxury package for everyone." I excused myself and found refuge in the library, a room the Pattersons rarely used, despite its floor-to-ceiling shelves of leather-bound books. Through the window, I could see Ryan on the terrace, gesturing animatedly to a group of older men, no doubt spinning tales of his fictional business victories. Hiding out? I turned to find James in the doorway, scotch in hand. Ryan's younger brother had always been slightly less cruel than the rest, though that wasn't saying much. "Just needed a quiet moment," I said. He nodded, sipping his drink. "Can't blame you. These events are torture." He paused, studying me. "You know, I never understood why Ryan married you." "Thanks for the honesty," I said dryly. "No, I mean—" He seemed to struggle for words. "You're clearly intelligent. You built a successful company. You could have had anyone. Why choose someone who would never let you forget where you came from?" It was the most honest conversation I'd had with any Patterson in years. I fell in love with who Ryan was in college, before all this. "Ah," James smiled sadly. "The eternal hope that people will change back to who they used to be. Classic mistake." He wandered off, leaving me with my thoughts. After a few minutes, I decided to look for a bathroom away from the crowd. The estate had 12 bedrooms and numerous sitting rooms, so I headed toward the private wing. As I passed Richard's study, I heard Ryan's voice through the partially open door. I stopped, my hand frozen on the bathroom doorknob. "After the wedding," Ryan was saying, "I'll have better leverage. Madison's connection to the Whitfields will open doors." "Good," Richard's voice rumbled. "And the situation with Andrea—" "Andrea," Ryan corrected automatically, which surprised me. "I'm handling it. The post-nup is ready. Harold says if she balks, we can pressure her with the implied threat of immediate divorce. She won't want the embarrassment." "She's served her purpose," Patricia's voice added. "I hadn't realized she was in there too. Your little rebellion in college marrying beneath you. But now it's time to think of the family legacy." "Her company would make a nice asset in the divorce," Richard mused. "Tech firms are gold mines these days." "I've been documenting everything," Ryan said, and my heart clenched. "Making it look like marital assets. By the time we file, my lawyer says we could claim at least 40%. "Clever boy," Patricia approved. "Though honestly, Ryan, next time choose someone from our world. This experiment with charity cases has gone on long enough." "I know, Mother. After this is settled, I promise to be more selective." "The Ashford girl is still single," Patricia suggested. "Oil money, very suitable." I backed away from the door, my hands trembling. In my pocket, my phone had recorded every word. I made it to the bathroom and locked the door, staring at my reflection. My carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the shock in my eyes. When I finally emerged, the dinner bell was ringing. I found my place card at the far end of the table, naturally seated between the catering manager and someone's +1 who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. Ryan sat near the head with his parents laughing at something Senator Whitfield said. Throughout the 7-course meal, I watched my husband charm everyone around him. He told stories about deals that never happened, dropped names of executives he'd never met, and accepted praise for successes that weren't his. Madison announced that the wedding planning was going perfectly, thanks to her generous brother, and the table toasted Ryan's largesse. "Such a wonderful family tradition," Patricia said, raising her glass. "Pattersons supporting Pattersons. Nothing matters more than family loyalty." "Hear, hear," the table chorused. I raised my water glass silently, thinking about the $300,000 of my money funding this family loyalty. The bitter irony almost made me laugh. After dinner, the men retired to the study for cigars and brandy, while the women gathered in the conservatory. I tried to slip away, but Patricia called me back. "Andrea, be a dear and help clear up. The staff could use an extra hand." "The staff seems to have it under control," I said, watching the efficient team of servers. Her eyes narrowed. I wasn't making a suggestion. So I spent the next hour carrying plates and glasses while the other women discussed their charity committees and European vacations. Madison regaled them with wedding details, each revelation more extravagant than the last. "The cake alone is $15,000, she bragged. 7 tiers hand-painted with edible gold. The cake designer is flying in from Beverly Hills. How wonderful that Ryan can provide such luxuries, Senator Whitfield's wife commented. You Pattersons certainly know how to celebrate properly. I set down a stack of plates too forcefully and they clattered loudly. Everyone turned to stare. "Careful," Patricia said icily. "Those are antique Limoges, probably worth more than your childhood home." "Probably," I agreed, though my childhood home taught me values that money can't buy. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Madison broke it with a tinkling laugh. "How quaint. Shall we discuss the honeymoon suite? It's $10,000 a night, but Derek insists on the best." I excused myself and went outside for air. The Connecticut night was crisp, and I breathed deeply, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Everything was falling into place now. The unemployment, the secret meetings, the demands for money. It had all been planned. "There you are." Ryan appeared beside me, loosening his tie. "You disappeared." "Your mother had me buzzing tables," I said flatly. He had the grace to look embarrassed. "She doesn't mean anything by it." "Doesn't she?" I turned to face him. "Tell me something, Ryan. When you look at me, what do you see, your wife or a convenient bank account with an unfortunate past? Where is this coming from?" He tried to take my hand, but I stepped back. "You're being dramatic." I heard some interesting conversations tonight." His face went still. "What conversations?" "Does it matter? Apparently, after Madison's wedding, you'll have better leverage for, what was it? Handling the situation with me. You were eavesdropping. Is that really your concern right now, that I overheard your plans to steal my company?" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Nobody's stealing anything. You're paranoid. My family talks about business all the time. It doesn't mean anything. Your mother has already picked out your next wife, the Ashford girl, oil money, very suitable." His face flushed. "That's just mother being mother. You know how she is." "Yes," I said quietly. "I know exactly how she is, how all of you are." A valet brought our car around, and we drove home in silence. I stared out the window, watching the mansions pass by, each one a fortress of privilege and pretense. In my pocket, my phone held the evidence of my husband's betrayal, each word a nail in the coffin of our marriage. But I wasn't ready to bury it yet. Not when there was still a wedding to pay for and a lesson to teach. The Pattersons thought they were so clever, so superior. They had no idea that the trailer park girl they mocked had become a queen in her own right, and queens knew how to protect their kingdoms. As we pulled into our driveway, Ryan finally spoke. "Whatever you think you heard tonight, you're wrong. I love you, Andrea. That hasn't changed." I looked at him in the dim light of the car. "You're right. It hasn't changed. Because you never loved me at all. You loved the idea of rebellion, of shocking your parents. And when that wore off, you loved my money. But me, the real me. You've been planning to discard me like trash since the day you lost your job." "That's not true." But I was already out of the car, walking toward the house. Behind me, I heard him calling my name. For once, he got it right. Andrea. Not Andrea. Not the charity case. Not the trailer park girl. Andrea. The woman who was about to teach the Patterson family a lesson they'd never forget. The week after the disastrous family dinner, I decided to take a more active role in the wedding planning. Not because I wanted to help Madison, but because I needed to understand exactly where my money was going. I started by calling Maria Castellano, the wedding coordinator Madison had hired for $20,000. "Mrs. Patterson." Maria sounded surprised when I identified myself. "Madison said you weren't involved in the planning." "There's been a change," I said smoothly. "Since the payments are coming from my accounts, I'd like to review some details. Could we meet for coffee?" We met at a quiet cafe in downtown Hartford. Maria was a polished woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and an air of professional competence. She arrived with a thick binder and an iPad, looking slightly nervous. "I have to admit I'm confused," she began after we ordered. "Madison has been very specific that all communication should go through her or Ryan. I understand, but as the person actually funding this event, I think I deserve some transparency." I pulled out my business card. "This is my company. Every vendor payment has come from these accounts." Maria's eyes widened as she recognized the TechFlow Solutions logo. You're the CEO, but Madison said—" She stopped herself, clearly uncomfortable. What did Madison say? Perhaps we should focus on the wedding details, Maria said diplomatically. Please, I said gently. I need to know what I'm dealing with. Maria sighed, her professional mask slipping. She told me you were Ryan's dependent, that you had no say in the planning because you wouldn't understand the level of sophistication required. I see. I kept my voice neutral despite the anger simmering inside. And how has Madison been treating you and your team? That's not really... Maria, please. I'm asking as one businesswoman to another. She glanced around the cafe, then leaned forward. It's been the most challenging event of my career. Madison has made 3 of my assistants cry. She threatens to destroy our reputation if the smallest detail isn't perfect. Last week, she screamed at our junior coordinator for 40 minutes because the sample invitations were pearl white instead of diamond white. I'm sorry you've had to deal with that. It's more than just rudeness. Maria continued, seeming relieved to finally talk to someone. She demands we redo work constantly, then refuses to pay for the extra hours. She's told vendors that if they charge for changes, she'll ensure they never work in Connecticut again. I pulled out my phone. Send me a list of all the vendors and any outstanding payments for additional work. I'll make sure everyone is compensated fairly. Maria's eyes filled with tears. You have no idea what this means. Some of these people are small business owners. They can't afford to work for free. Over the next few days, I systematically contacted every vendor. The stories were remarkably similar. The florist, a lovely woman named Susan Chen, met me at her shop. Madison made us redo the centerpiece design 17 times, Susan said, showing me sketches. Each time she'd approve something, then call the next day saying it was all wrong. She told my assistant that we clearly didn't understand refined taste because we were used to working with common people. Has she paid for the redesigns? Susan shook her head. She said the contract covers unlimited revisions. That's not true, but what can we do? The Patterson name carries weight in this state. Not as much as they think, I said, writing a check from my personal account. This should cover your extra work, and Susan, I need you to do me a favor. The photographer Marcus Webb had perhaps the worst story. She demanded I sign a contract saying I would digitally remove you from any family photos. He told me over lunch. When I refused, she threatened to hire someone else and sue me for the deposit. What did you do? I told her I'd think about it. Honestly, Mrs. Patterson, I've shot hundreds of weddings, but I've never encountered anyone so deliberately cruel. Please call me Andrea, and I have a proposition for you. One by one, I met with the caterer, the band, the cake designer, and the venue staff. Each had horror stories about Madison's behavior and Ryan's absence from any planning discussions. The venue manager, Robert, was particularly forthcoming. Your husband called once to increase the bar package to premium liquor, Robert said. Other than that, all communication has been through Madison. She's difficult. How difficult? She made one of our servers cry because she didn't like how he folded napkins. She demanded he be fired. When we refused, she threatened to cancel the entire event unless we banned him from working her wedding. Did you? Robert looked ashamed. We reassigned him to a different event that weekend. I couldn't risk losing such a large booking. I took notes on everything, building a comprehensive picture of Madison's reign of terror. But more importantly, I was establishing relationships with each vendor, making sure they knew who was really paying their bills. The cake designer, Henri Dubois, who'd flown in from Beverly Hills, was especially enlightening. Madison insisted on a tasting with 30 different cake flavors, he said in his French accent. Then she invited 20 of her friends to judge them, turning it into a party at my expense. When I sent an invoice for the additional cost, she laughed and said I should be grateful for the exposure. How much was the additional cost? $3,000. The ingredients alone for that many samples. I wrote another check. Henri, I want you to know that I value your artistry. Your work is exquisite. You are very different from your sister-in-law, he observed. Yes, I agreed. I am. The most revealing conversation came from the venue's event staff. I met with 3 servers who would be working the wedding, all young people working their way through college. They reminded me of myself at that age, hustling to pay tuition. Madison came for a tasting last month. One server, Amy, told me. She sent back every single dish saying the presentation was pedestrian. The chef remade everything 3 times. She still complained. She asked for our names and schedules. Another server, David, added. Said she wanted to ensure quality control. Then she Googled us and told management she didn't want anyone with sketchy backgrounds serving her guests. What did she consider sketchy? I asked, though I could guess. Anyone who went to community college had student loans or worked more than one job, Amy said bitterly. Basically anyone who wasn't born wealthy. I thought of my own community college credits transferred to a 4-year school once I could afford it. My multiple jobs, my student loans that took 10 years to pay off. According to Madison's standards, I was the epitome of sketchy. I want you all to know something, I said. On the wedding day, you might see some unusual things happen. No matter what occurs, your jobs are safe and you'll be paid in full. In fact, I handed each of them a check. Consider this a pre-tip for excellent service. Their eyes widened at the amounts. Mrs. Patterson, this is too much, David protested. No, I said firmly. It's exactly right, and please call me Andrea. My final meeting that week was with the band leader, Tony Morrison. His jazz ensemble was costing $15,000 for the evening, and he'd been dealing with Madison's demands for months. She sent us a list of 200 songs she wants us to learn, Tony said, showing me pages of requests. Then another list of 100 songs we're forbidden to play. She wants us to take requests, but only from a pre-approved guest list. Anyone not on the list gets ignored. Who's not on the list? I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. Tony looked uncomfortable. She specifically said that if you requested any songs, we should pretend we don't know them. I laughed, surprising him. Tony, I want you to keep that list handy. On the wedding day, I might have a very specific request, and I'll need you to follow Madison's instructions exactly. I'm not sure I understand. You will, I promised. Just remember who signs your check. By the end of the week, I'd met with every single vendor involved in the wedding. I'd compensated them fairly for Madison's abuse, established myself as the true client, and planted seeds for what was to come. Each vendor had my direct phone number and clear instructions to call me with any issues. The following Saturday, Madison called Ryan to complain. I could hear her shrill voice through his phone from across the room. The vendors are being difficult, she whined. They keep asking for confirmations and talking about payment schedules. Why are they bothering me with these details? I'll handle it, Ryan promised, shooting me a warning look. After he hung up, he confronted me. Have you been talking to the wedding vendors? My money, my right to know where it's going, I said simply. You're going to ruin everything. Madison is stressed enough without you interfering. Interesting, I said. Your sister can threaten to destroy small businesses, reduce workers to tears, and demand endless free labor. But I'm the one ruining everything. She's a perfectionist. She wants her day to be special. At everyone else's expense, literally. Ryan ran his hands through his hair. Can you please just stay out of it? We're so close to the wedding. Just a few more weeks. Oh, I'll stay out of it, I agreed. But the vendors now know who to contact if there are any problems. Your sister's reign of terror is over. You're being dramatic. Am I? Did you know she demanded the photographer edit me out of all family photos, or that she told the band to ignore any song requests I might make, or that she tried to have servers fired for being working class? Ryan's face showed genuine surprise at the last one. She wouldn't. She did, repeatedly. Your sister is a monster, Ryan, and you've enabled her by letting everyone believe you're funding her cruelty. It's just wedding stress. She'll calm down after. After she's humiliated enough people, after she's destroyed enough small businesses, or after you divorce me and she doesn't have to pretend to tolerate my presence anymore. He flinched at the word divorce. We're not talking about that right now. No, you're just meeting with lawyers and planning timelines. But you're right, we're not talking about it. We're done talking. I walked away, leaving him standing in our living room surrounded by the luxury my success had provided. In my home office, I updated my spreadsheet with the additional payments I'd made to vendors. The wedding was now costing me closer to $400,000, but the extra expense was worth it. I'd bought something more valuable than flowers or cake or crystal favors. I'd bought allies. And on Madison's perfect day, when she stood in her designer dress surrounded by the vendors she'd terrorized, she'd learn what happened when you treated people like they were beneath you. They rose up, and sometimes they brought the whole house down with them. I arrived in Hawaii a full week before the wedding, ostensibly to help with last-minute preparations. The Royal Pacific Resort was even more spectacular than the photos with its pristine beaches, lush gardens, and discreet luxury that whispered rather than shouted its five-star status. I checked into my ocean view suite different from the block reserved for wedding guests and immediately set up my mobile office. My first call was to Sarah, my attorney. "I'm in Hawaii. Is everything ready on your end?" "Locked and loaded," she confirmed. "The divorce papers are drawn up and I have all the financial documentation prepared. Are you sure about the timing?" "Positive. The moment needs to be perfect." "And the other matter?" "My CFO has all the payment authorizations ready to execute on my signal. The vendor contracts are clear, that I'm the client of record." After ending the call, I video conferenced with my executive team back in Hartford. TechFlow Solutions had just landed another major contract, and I needed to sign off on some decisions. It felt good to focus on real business instead of the Patterson family drama. That afternoon, Madison summoned me to her penthouse suite. She answered the door in a silk robe, her hair in enormous rollers, looking every inch the bridezilla she'd become. "Finally," she snapped. "I've been waiting for 20 minutes. I glanced at my phone. "You texted me 7 minutes ago." "Don't be pedantic. Come in. There's work to do." Her suite was chaos. Wedding paraphernalia covered every surface, and 2 harried assistants scurried around trying to organize the mess. Madison gestured imperiously at a mountain of gift bags. "These need to be sorted by table number and checked against the guest list. Each bag needs tissue paper in the exact shade of blush we selected, not the coral that arrived. You'll need to go to every store in town to find the right color." "Interesting task for the woman funding your wedding," I observed mildly. Madison's face flushed. "Ryan is funding this wedding. You're just here to help." "Of course," I said, smiling. How silly of me to think the $300,000 from my accounts meant anything. One of the assistants, a young woman named Claire, glanced up sharply at this exchange, but quickly looked away when Madison glared at her. "Just do what you're told," Madison commanded. "And try not to embarrass the family. We have important guests arriving. The Whitfield's yacht docked this morning." I spent the next several hours on deliberately menial tasks. Madison had me polish each piece of crystal in the gift bags, steam every ribbon and handwrite table numbers in calligraphy, rejecting my first attempts as too common-looking. Through it all, her assistants watched with growing discomfort. During a break, Claire approached me quietly. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry about all this. It doesn't seem right." "What's your last name, Claire?" "Murphy. I'm a junior at Connecticut College." "Working to pay tuition?" She nodded. "This job pays well, but—" She glanced at Madison, who was berating someone on the phone. "But some things aren't worth the money," I finished. "I understand. I worked 3 jobs in college." Claire's eyes widened. "You did—" "Overnight shifts at a grocery store, tutoring, and data entry on weekends. It's hard, but it builds character." I handed her my business card. "Call me after the wedding. TechFlow has a great internship program." That evening, the Patterson family arrived in force. Richard and Patricia swept into the resort like visiting royalty, immediately demanding upgrades and special treatment. James arrived separately with his wife, looking resigned to the week ahead. Ryan appeared last, having flown in on a later flight to maintain the illusion of important business obligations. The welcome dinner was held in a private dining room overlooking the ocean. I found my place card unsurprisingly at the far end of the table, between two elderly aunts who spent the entire meal discussing their medications. Ryan sat with Madison and Derek playing the role of generous brother to perfection. A toast. Richard announced, raising his glass, to Madison and Derek and to Ryan for making this dream wedding possible. The family cheered while I sipped my water, thinking about the invoice I'd approved that morning for the dinner we were eating. $50,000 for one meal. The irony tasted better than the wine. After dinner, Patricia cornered me near the restrooms. "Andrea, you'll need to be up early tomorrow. Madison needs someone to supervise the flower delivery. 5 a.m. sharp." "It's Andrea, and I thought the wedding coordinator was handling that." Patricia's smile could have frozen lava. "Maria is busy with important matters. This is more your speed. Unless you have something more pressing." "Nothing more pressing than ensuring the flowers my money paid for arrive correctly," I said pleasantly. Her eye twitched. "What did you say?" I said I'll be there at 5 a.m. She studied me suspiciously but ultimately walked away. I made a mental note to be nowhere near the flower delivery at 5 a.m. The next 3 days passed in a blur of manufactured crises and deliberate humiliations. Madison found endless tasks designed to keep me busy and out of sight. I was sent to check on chair rentals that were already confirmed, to approve napkin folds that had been decided months ago, and to collect wedding programs from a printer who hadn't even started the job because Madison kept changing the design. Throughout it all, Ryan remained absent, claiming important phone calls and meetings. I knew he was actually at the golf course or the spa, charging everything to my credit cards while maintaining his facade. On Thursday, 2 days before the wedding, I met with Maria privately in her resort office. "I wanted to confirm the final timeline," I said, pulling out my tablet. Maria looked exhausted. "Everything is set. The ceremony starts at 4, cocktail hour at 5, reception at 6:30. She hesitated. "Andrea, about the seating chart." "What about it?" "Madison made some last-minute changes. I tried to argue, but she insisted." She showed me the diagram on her computer. There was no seat for me at the ceremony. At the reception, I was placed at a table in the back corner with the venue staff and photographers. "She said you preferred to stay in the background," Maria explained weakly. "Did she—" I studied the chart. "Tell me, Maria, do you have the original contracts handy? The ones with my signature as the client?" "Yes, of course." "Good. Keep them close. You might need them soon." That evening, I overheard Madison talking to her bridesmaids in the bar. I stayed hidden behind a pillar recording on my phone. "Can you believe Andrea actually thinks she belongs here?" Madison laughed. "Derek's family keeps asking who she is. I just tell them she's Ryan's charity project." "That's cruel, Maddie," one bridesmaid said weakly. "It's true, you should see where she grew up. I had Derek's cousin do a background check, a trailer park in Nebraska. Her mother was a waitress. Her father worked in a factory when he bothered to work at all. It's embarrassing." "But she seems nice," another bridesmaid ventured. "Nice." Madison's voice dripped venom. "She's a social climber who got lucky with some tech thing. But blood will tell. You can dress her up, buy her nice things, but underneath trash is trash." My hands clenched, but I forced myself to stay calm. Every word was being recorded. Every insult was evidence. The night before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner was held on the beach. It was a lavish affair with a 10-piece band, gourmet food stations, and champagne flowing like water. I arrived to find the seating in chaos, with Madison shrieking at the staff about arrangements. "How hard is it to follow a simple chart?" she screamed at a young server. I recognized David from my earlier meeting with the venue staff. He was trying to explain that there weren't enough chairs at the head table, but Madison wouldn't listen. "Figure it out," she snapped. "And if you can't handle basic counting, maybe you shouldn't be working tomorrow." I stepped forward. "What seems to be the problem?" Madison whirled on me. "This is none of your business. Go check on the dessert table or something useful." "The problem," David said, gaining courage from my presence, "is that the head table is set for 12, but there are 13 people listed." I looked at the chart in his hand. Sure enough, my name wasn't included in the head table count. "Simple solution," I said. "I'll sit elsewhere." "Obviously," Madison muttered. I found a seat with Maria and some vendors at a side table. They seemed surprised but pleased by my company. As the evening progressed, I watched Ryan give a touching toast about family bonds and the importance of loyalty. The Whitfields beamed while Patricia dabbed at her eyes. "Tomorrow is going to be perfect," Madison announced to the gathered crowd. "The perfect venue, the perfect guests, the perfect celebration of two families joining as one. Nothing and no one will ruin my special day." She looked directly at me as she said the last part. I raised my glass in a mock toast, thinking about the plans I'd set in motion. "Oh, Madison, if only you knew what was coming." The party continued late into the night with Ryan holding court among Derek's business associates, still pretending to be the successful banker funding his sister's dreams. Madison danced with her father, both of them glowing with Patterson pride. I slipped away early and returned to my suite. On my laptop, I reviewed everything one more time. The contracts, the recordings, the financial statements, the divorce papers. All the pieces were in place. Tomorrow, Madison would have her perfect wedding, right up until the moment she discovered what happened when you treated people like they were beneath you. The girl from the trailer park was about to teach the princess a lesson in humility. I fell asleep with a smile on my face, dreaming of justice served ice cold, just like the champagne at tomorrow's reception. The champagne I'd paid for at the party I wouldn't be attending, at least not in the way they expected. Saturday arrived with picture-perfect Hawaiian weather. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of plumeria across the resort. It was, as Madison had demanded, a perfect day for a wedding. I woke early and ordered room service, enjoying my breakfast on the balcony while reviewing my checklist one final time. My phone buzzed with messages from the Patterson family group chat, which I was technically part of but rarely acknowledged. "Patricia, remember family photos at noon sharp, professional attire required." James, what exactly is professional attire for a beach wedding? Madison, if you have to ask, you probably shouldn't be in the photos. Ryan, don't worry about it, Mom. Everything will be perfect. I noticed no one had directed any messages to me specifically. It was as if I didn't exist in their family narrative. Soon enough, that would be more true than they realized. At 9 a.m., Madison summoned me to her suite. I found her surrounded by an army of beauty professionals, hairstylists, makeup artists, nail technicians, and someone whose sole job appeared to be misting her with setting spray. "Finally," she said without looking at me. "I need you to take care of something." "Good morning to you too," I said pleasantly. She thrust a garment bag at me. "This needs to be steamed again. The humidity made it wrinkle." I unzipped the bag to find a bridesmaid dress. "Whose is this?" "Does it matter? Just get it done. And make sure you use distilled water in the steamer. Tap water leaves marks." I took the dress, noting it was 2 sizes larger than any of her bridesmaids wore. "Madison, whose dress is this?" She finally looked at me, her eyes glittering with malice. "It was supposed to be for Ryan's wife, but then we realized you wouldn't fit in the photos anyway. Wrong aesthetic. So we gave it to Derek's cousin instead." "I see." I kept my voice neutral. "So you ordered a bridesmaid dress for me, then gave it away." "Ryan thought you might expect to be included." She turned back to her mirror. "I told him you'd understand your place. You do understand, don't you?" "Oh, I understand perfectly." "Good. Now hurry up with the steaming, and when you're done, the shoes in the closet need polish. All 20 pairs. I spent the next hour on these meaningless tasks while Madison's bridesmaids arrived in a flutter of excitement. They were all variations on a theme, blonde, thin, and expensively maintained. They air-kissed Madison and gushed over her appearance, while pointedly ignoring me. "Is that the help?" I heard one whisper. "No," another giggled. "That's Ryan's wife, but basically the same thing." Around 11, Patricia arrived with the photographer to oversee the getting ready shots. She surveyed the room with a critical eye, her gaze lingering on me with obvious displeasure. "Andrea, what are you still doing here? The family photos are in an hour." "It's Andrea, and Madison asked me to polish shoes." "Well, finish up and go get ready. Try to look presentable. We have important guests." I held up a designer heel that cost more than most people's rent. "Define presentable." Her nostrils flared. "Just try not to embarrass us. Wear something appropriate. Not too flashy, not too plain. You do understand subtlety, don't you?" "I'm learning more about it every day." She sniffed and turned to Madison. "Darling, you look absolutely radiant. A true Patterson bride." I finished the shoes and left the suite. In my own room, I chose my outfit carefully. Not the expensive designer dress I'd bought for the occasion, but a simple, elegant sheath in navy blue. Professional, understated, and entirely forgettable. Exactly what they expected from me. The family photos were held in the resort's garden with the ocean as a backdrop. The photographer Marcus gave me a sympathetic look as I arrived. The Patterson clan was already assembled, Richard in his tuxedo, Patricia dripping in diamonds, James and his wife, various cousins and aunts. Ryan stood at the edge, checking his phone. "Andrea," Marcus said professionally, "let's have you stand here for the first shot." "No." Madison interrupted, appearing in full bridal glory. "We're doing immediate family only first. Andrea can wait." "But she's Ryan's wife," Marcus pointed out. "That makes her immediate family." Madison's smile was sharp. "Does it though, Ryan, tell him." My husband looked up from his phone, his face cycling through emotions. For a moment I thought he might actually defend me. Then he shrugged. "Maybe it's easier if we do the core family first. Andrea won't mind waiting." "Of course not," I said smoothly. "I'll just stand over here." For the next 40 minutes, I watched the Patterson family pose in various combinations. Madison with her parents, the siblings together, the entire extended family. Each time Marcus suggested including me, Madison found a reason to object. The light wasn't right. The composition would be off. They needed to hurry for the next setup. "Now let's get some candid shots while everyone's getting ready," Marcus announced. "Andrea," Patricia called out, "be a dear and hold our purses while we walk. We can't have them in the photos." So I stood there laden with designer handbags like a human coat rack while the family strolled through the gardens laughing and posing. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria. "Final confirmations complete. All vendors aware of payment situation." Perfect. The photo session finally ended and everyone dispersed to prepare for the ceremony. Ryan lingered, approaching me with something that might have been guilt in his eyes. "Thanks for being cool about the photos," he said. "Madison's just stressed. You know how brides are." We eloped, remember? You said big weddings were a waste of money." He flinched. "That was different. We were young and broke." "You were never broke, Ryan. You had your trust fund. I was broke. There's a difference." "Why are you being like this?" He grabbed my arm. "This is Madison's day. Can't you just play along?" I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. The handsome features that had once made my heart race now just looked weak. "I've been playing along for months, funding this circus while your family treats me like dirt. But don't worry, I'll keep playing my part until the end." "What does that mean?" "It means you should go get ready. You don't want to be late for the ceremony where you'll take credit for your generosity." He released my arm, studying me with the first signs of real concern. "Andrea, whatever you're thinking..." "I'm thinking you should have been honest with your family, about your job, about the money, about me. But you chose the easy path, letting them believe their fantasies while spending my reality." "After the wedding, I promise I'll tell them everything." I laughed, the sound bitter in the tropical air. "Your promises are worth less than Madison's fake tears. Go, Ryan. Your family's waiting." He left, and I returned to my room to touch up my makeup. In the mirror, I saw someone I barely recognized. Not the eager young woman who'd married Ryan Patterson believing love could overcome class differences. Not the uncertain wife who'd tried so hard to fit into a family that would never accept her. I saw a CEO, a self-made success, A woman who'd built an empire from nothing while her husband's family built nothing but debt and delusions. 3 o'clock arrived. Time to get to the ceremony venue. I gathered my purse, making sure my phone was fully charged and ready to record. One more hour of humiliation, and then the tables would turn. As I walked through the resort, I passed excited wedding guests in their finest attire. The Whitfields had arrived in force, 3 generations of old money barely acknowledging my existence as I passed. Other guests included Patterson business associates, country club friends, and what Madison called the right people. Not one of them would have given me the time of day in any other context. To them, I was nobody. The wife who didn't quite fit, married to the family's golden boy who deserved better. They were right about one thing. Ryan did deserve better. He deserved exactly what he was about to get. I made my way to the ceremony site where 200 white chairs faced an altar decorated with thousands of dollars worth of tropical flowers. The ocean sparkled beyond and soft music played as guests took their seats. It was beautiful, elegant, and completely paid for by the woman who wouldn't have a seat. Maria caught my eye from her position near the entrance. She held her tablet like a shield, and I saw my contracts tucked visibly in her portfolio. Good. Everything was documented and ready. The music swelled and the processional began. I stood at the back watching Madison's bridesmaids glide down the aisle in their matching gowns. The same gowns I'd been measured for but never received. Then came the flower girls, the ring bearer, and finally the music changed to the wedding march. Madison appeared on Richard's arm, resplendent in her $40,000 dress, holding her $10,000 bouquet, walking down the aisle I'd paid for toward the altar I'd funded. She looked every inch the princess she believed herself to be. As she passed my position at the back, we made eye contact. Her smile widened, triumphant and cruel. She'd won, that smile said. She'd successfully excluded me from my own husband's family, pushed me to the margins where trash like me belonged. I smiled back, thinking of the phone calls I would make in exactly 50 minutes. She had no idea that her kingdom was built on sand and the tide was about to come in. The ceremony proceeded like a fairy tale. Derek stood at the altar in his custom tuxedo, looking every inch the Whitfield heir. Madison floated toward him, her cathedral-length veil trailing behind her like a cloud. The guests rose as she passed, murmuring appreciatively at her beauty. Patricia dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, while Richard stood tall, proud to be giving away his princess. I remained at the back, standing behind the last row of chairs like an uninvited stranger. A few guests glanced at me curiously, probably wondering why someone in a simple navy dress was hovering at the periphery of such an elaborate affair. The officiant, a friend of the Whitfield family who'd gotten ordained specifically for this event, began the ceremony with practiced warmth. Dearest family and friends, we gather here today in this paradise to witness the union of 2 extraordinary people from 2 exceptional families. As he spoke about love, commitment, and the joining of dynasties, I watched Ryan in his position as groomsman. He stood straight and proud, his rented tuxedo carefully tailored to hide the weight he'd gained from stress. Every few minutes he'd touch his pocket where his phone should be, probably worried about missing non-existent important calls. The bride and groom have written their own vows, the officiant announced. Derek went first, his words polished and appropriate. He spoke of Madison's beauty, her refinement, her perfect fit into his world. Madison's vows were equally superficial, focusing on Derek's success, their shared vision of a life filled with yacht clubs and charity galas. Neither mentioned kindness. Neither spoke of partnership through hardship. It was a business merger dressed in white silk and promises. "The rings, please," the officiant called. Ryan stepped forward with the rings, playing his part as the devoted brother. The $20,000 wedding bands gleamed in the afternoon sun as Madison and Derek slipped them on each other's fingers. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The crowd erupted in applause as Derek kissed his bride. Rose petals fell from hidden cannons, creating a picture-perfect moment that would look beautiful in the photos I wouldn't be in. As the recessional began, the wedding party walked back down the aisle in pairs. Ryan escorted one of Madison's sorority sisters, both of them beaming as if they'd accomplished something meaningful. The guests began to file out row by row, heading for the cocktail hour on the terrace. I waited until the chairs were nearly empty before approaching Maria, who was directing staff with quiet efficiency. "How did it go?" I asked. She looked tired but relieved. "Perfect as demanded, no disasters." "Not yet," I murmured. An older woman nearby overheard and turned to me with a puzzled expression. "Excuse me, dear, but aren't you Ryan Patterson's wife? I'm Derek's great-aunt Millicent." "Yes, I'm Andrea," I confirmed. "How strange that you weren't in the wedding party. In my day, sisters-in-law were always included." I smiled tightly. Madison had a specific vision. Millicent studied me shrewdly. "And where were you sitting? I didn't see you during the ceremony." "Oh, I was just enjoying the view from the back." Her eyes narrowed. There were empty chairs. Several, in fact. "Why would you stand?" Before I could answer, Madison appeared still glowing from her triumphant walk down the aisle. She'd removed her veil and touched up her lipstick, looking every inch the society bride. "Aunt Millicent." She air-kissed the older woman. "Thank you so much for coming. Isn't everything perfect?" "Nearly perfect," Millicent said coolly, though I was just wondering why Ryan's wife was standing at the back like hired help. Madison's smile tightened. "Oh, Andrea prefers to stay in the background. Don't you?" She turned to me with eyes that promised consequences if I contradicted her. "Actually," I said clearly, "I was looking for my seat. Where exactly did you place me, Madison?" "Your seat?" She laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "Oh dear, was there some confusion? I thought you understood." "Understood what?" She leaned in close, her voice dropping so only I could hear, though she didn't realize I was recording. "That lowborn blood is different from ours. We couldn't have you in the family sections. Surely you see how that would look." "Madison," Millicent gasped, having heard despite the lowered voice. Madison straightened her public smile back in place. "I simply mean that seating arrangements are so complicated with two prominent families. Some sacrifices had to be made for symmetry." "What an interesting interpretation," I said. "So where was my seat?" "Well," Madison gestured vaguely, "the venue must have made an error. These things happen." "Do they?" I pulled out my phone. "Should we check with Maria? I'm sure she has the seating chart you approved." Madison's face flushed. Behind her, Ryan appeared with his parents, all of them sensing tension. "What's going on?" Patricia demanded. "Andrea's making a fuss about seating," Madison said quickly, "on my wedding day. Can you believe it?" "I'm simply asking where my seat was," I said calmly. "Since I funded this entire event, I'm curious where you thought I should sit." The words landed like a bomb. Several nearby guests turned to stare. The Whitfields, who'd been heading to cocktail hour, paused to listen. "What did you say?" Richard's voice was dangerously low. Ryan stepped forward. "Andrea, let's discuss this privately. Why your family has never hesitated to humiliate me publicly. Why should the truth be private?" "You're being ridiculous," Patricia snapped. "Ryan paid for this wedding. Everyone knows that." "Do they?" I turned to Maria, who was watching with wide eyes. "Maria, could you confirm who signed the contracts, who paid the deposits, whose credit card is on file for the $300,000 this wedding cost?" Maria clutched her tablet tighter. It's a simple question," I continued. "Who is the client of record?" "You are Mrs. Patterson," Maria said quietly. "Andrea Patterson, CEO of TechFlow Solutions." The silence was deafening. Madison's bridesmaids exchanged shocked glances. The Whitfield family stood frozen in place. Patricia's face had gone from red to white to red again. "That's impossible," Ryan said weakly. "There's been a mistake." "The only mistake," I said, "was letting you maintain this charade for so long. You've been unemployed for 8 months, Ryan. Every penny of this wedding came from my company, the same company your family has been planning to steal in the divorce you're orchestrating." "Divorce," Patricia shrieked. "What divorce?" "The one your husband and son have been planning with lawyers. The one where they hope to claim my business as marital assets." I looked at Madison. "But please tell me more about lowborn blood. Explain how the trailer park girl you've mocked for years isn't good enough to sit with your family even though she's bankrolling your fantasy." Madison's perfect makeup couldn't hide her rage. "You're lying. This is some pathetic attempt to ruin my day because you're jealous." I held up my phone. "I have recordings, Madison. Every insult, every slight, every moment of cruelty, including the one from 5 minutes ago about lowborn blood. You recorded me." She lunged forward, but Derek caught her arm. "Madison, what's going on?" He looked between us, confusion clear on his face. "Is this true?" "Of course not," Madison said shrilly. "She's delusional. Ryan, tell them." All eyes turned to Ryan, who stood there like a deer in headlights. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "Tell them, Ryan, I encouraged. Tell them about Wellington Financial. Tell them about the 8 months of pretending to go to work. Tell them about the golf club memberships and expensive lunches all charged to my corporate cards, while you plan to divorce me and take half my company." "This is absurd," Richard blustered. "My son is a successful investment banker." "Your son is a fraud," I said simply. "Just like this entire family. You've built your superiority complex on lies and debt, looking down on people who actually work for their success. And now at the wedding I paid for, you have the audacity to tell me there's no seat for me because my blood isn't good enough." The crowd of guests had grown drawn by the drama like moths to flame. I saw phones discreetly recording, capturing the Patterson family's humiliation for posterity. Good. Let the world see who they really were. Madison was crying now, mascara-proof tears that somehow didn't disturb her makeup. "You're ruining everything. This is my day." "No," I corrected. "This is my day. The day I stop pretending to be less than I am to protect your fragile egos. The day I stop funding your delusions. The day I take my seat at the table whether you like it or not." I turned to the assembled crowd, many of whom I recognized as Hartford's social elite. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. Please enjoy the cocktail hour. The drinks are excellent. I should know. I selected and paid for them." With that, I walked away, leaving chaos in my wake. Behind me, I heard Patricia shrieking, Madison sobbing, and Ryan finally finding his voice to beg me to come back. But I didn't stop. I had phone calls to make and a timeline to keep. 50 minutes. Madison had no idea how long 50 minutes could feel when your perfect world was crumbling around you. But she was about to learn. I returned to my suite and closed the door on the chaos behind me. Through my balcony, I could see wedding guests milling about on the cocktail terrace, their conversations animated with scandal. The Patterson family disaster would be the talk of Hartford society for months. Good. I opened my laptop and pulled up the vendor contact list. My hands were steady as I reached for my phone. 5 years of humiliation were about to be answered in 50 minutes of decisive action. The first call was to Jean-Philippe, the celebrity chef Madison had insisted upon. "Jean-Philippe Catering," a professional voice answered. "This is Andrea Patterson, client of record for the Patterson-Whitfield wedding. I need to speak with Jean-Philippe immediately." "One moment, madame." The chef came on the line within seconds. "Mrs. Patterson, is everything to your satisfaction?" "Unfortunately, no. I need to cancel the reception dinner service effective immediately." There was a pause. "Pardon, the guests are already at cocktail hour." "I understand the timing is inconvenient. However, as the person paying your $80,000 fee, I'm exercising my right to cancel. Please have your staff cease preparations and begin packing up." "But madame, the food is prepared, the tables are set." "I'll ensure you're paid in full for your work," I assured him, "plus a 20% inconvenience fee. But no food is to be served. This is most unusual, but you are the client. We will begin breakdown immediately." One down, I called the bar service next. "Elite beverage services." "This is Andrea Patterson. I need to cancel bar service for the Patterson-Whitfield reception, effective immediately after cocktail hour ends. Ma'am, the premium package runs through midnight. Not anymore. Close the bars when cocktail hour ends at 5:30. No reception service. But we have 20 cases of champagne for Toast's the signature cocktails. Pack it all up. You'll be paid in full, including gratuities. The band was next. Tony Morrison answered his phone on the second ring. Tony, it's Andrea Patterson. I need you and your ensemble to pack up. The reception is canceled. Canceled. He sounded shocked, but not entirely surprised. We're set up and ready to play. I know, and I apologize. You'll receive full payment plus a bonus for the inconvenience. Can you have your equipment out within the hour? Of course. Mrs. Patterson, is everything all right? Everything's exactly as it should be. Thank you for your professionalism. I worked through the list methodically. The photographer, the videographer, the lighting designer who'd spent 2 days creating Madison's fairy tale ambiance. Each vendor confirmed cancellation with varying degrees of surprise, but none argued. They knew who signed their checks. Mrs. Patterson, Marcus the photographer said carefully, I have all the ceremony photos on my cards. Should I process them as contracted? I said. But only deliver the files to me, not to Madison, not to Ryan. The copyright remains with whoever pays correct. That's correct. You'll have exclusive access. Perfect. Maria was the most difficult call. Andrea, the cocktail hour is in chaos. The Pattersons are demanding to speak with you. I'm sure they are. Maria, I need you to begin reception breakdown. Everything. Flowers, decor, lighting. The room should be empty within 90 minutes. The guests are expecting dinner and dancing. The guests can expect whatever they like. I'm canceling everything except what's already in progress. What do I tell people? Tell them the truth. The person paying for the wedding has canceled the reception. If they want someone to blame, they can speak to Madison about her seating arrangements. I heard her take a shaky breath. The vendors are asking about payment. Everyone gets paid in full plus 20% for the inconvenience. I'm not punishing the workers for the Pattersons' behavior. Make sure the staff knows their tips are secure. Yes, ma'am, and thank you for earlier, for treating us with respect. You're welcome. Now please begin the breakdown. My phone exploded with calls and texts from the Patterson family. I ignored them all, focusing on my next task. I called the hotel manager. Mr. Tanaka, this is Andrea Patterson. I need to modify the room reservations under my account. Of course, Mrs. Patterson. How can I help? The honeymoon suite reservation for Madison and Derek Whitfield needs to be canceled effective tonight. Tonight, but they're getting married as we speak. The wedding is completed. The honeymoon is not my responsibility. Please also cancel the room block for Patterson family guests checking in tomorrow. All of them. All of them. Checkout is still covered for tonight, but no extensions, no late checkouts, no additional charges to my account. This is highly unusual, but within my rights as the account holder. Yes, ma'am, I'll process these changes immediately. I made one final call to my credit card company, canceling all the cards Ryan had access to. The representative confirmed that several charges had been attempted in the last hour, all declined now. 45 minutes had passed. I stood on my balcony and watched the chaos unfolding below. The cocktail terrace was packed with confused guests. I could see Madison in her wedding dress gesticulating wildly as she spoke to a group of bridesmaids. Patricia appeared to be having a heated conversation with Maria, while Richard cornered various vendors who were already beginning to pack up. My phone rang. Sarah, my attorney. I heard the news, she said, without preamble. Someone's live streaming from the cocktail hour. The internet is having a field day. Good. Let them see what happens when you treat people as less than human. Are you sure about this? There's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Then I'll file the divorce papers first thing Monday morning. With the recording evidence and financial documentation, Ryan won't get a penny. He can have the house, I said. I never liked it anyway, too many bad memories. Generous of you. Not really. The mortgage is in his name. Let him figure out how to pay for it without my income. I heard commotion in the corridor outside my suite. Footsteps, raised voices, someone pounding on my door. Andrea. Ryan's voice desperate and angry. Open this door, we need to talk. I should go, I told Sarah. The Pattersons have arrived. Good luck. Call if you need backup. I ended the call but didn't move toward the door. Let them pound. Let them rage. I had nothing left to say to any of them. Andrea, please. Madison's voice now shrill with panic. People are leaving. The vendors are packing up. You can't do this. I already did, I said quietly, though they couldn't hear me. More voices joined the chorus. Patricia's imperious demands, Richard's legal threats, various cousins and aunts adding their outrage to the mix. The door handle rattled as someone tried to force entry. Security's on the way, I heard James say. They can't make you leave your room. Good old James, the only Patterson with a shred of sense. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria. Breakdown 70% complete. Guests are leaving in droves. Madison is having a meltdown in the empty reception hall. I smiled grimly and typed back, make sure the staff is taken care of. Extra tips for anyone she abused. The pounding on my door eventually stopped, replaced by the distant sound of arguing. I ordered room service, changed into comfortable clothes, and settled in to watch the sunset over the Pacific. Below the reception terrace stood empty except for vendor trucks loading equipment. The fairy tale was over. My phone rang once more, an unknown number with a Connecticut area code. Curious, I answered. Is this Andrea Patterson? An elderly female voice, crisp and amused. Yes. This is Millicent Whitfield, Derek's great aunt. I wanted to thank you for the most entertaining wedding I've attended in 40 years. I laughed despite myself. Not quite the fairy tale Madison envisioned. My dear, fairy tales are overrated. What you did took courage. That family has been insufferable for years, looking down on everyone while living off borrowed prestige. She paused. I hear you run a successful technology company. I do. Wonderful. Derek's going to need a job soon. This scandal will follow him to every country club in Connecticut. Perhaps you're hiring. I'll consider it, I said, if he learns to judge people by their character rather than their bloodline. Fair enough. Take care, my dear, and well done. The line went dead. I stood on the balcony watching the last of the vendors leave. The wedding that had cost me $400,000 had lasted exactly as long as I'd allowed it to. Madison got her perfect ceremony, her moment as a princess. But the clock had struck midnight, and the carriage had turned back into a pumpkin. Tomorrow, the Pattersons would have to check out of their luxury rooms and face the reality of their situation. Ryan would discover his credit cards were canceled. Madison would return from her non-honeymoon to find her society friends gossiping about the wedding disaster. Richard would realize his business connections wanted nothing to do with the family scandal. But tonight, I raised a glass of champagne, toasting myself for finally standing up. The girl from the trailer park had built an empire, funded a fantasy, and then pulled it all down when they still said she wasn't good enough. Turns out, I was more than good enough. I was the queen, and I'd just reclaimed my throne. An hour after the reception collapsed, security finally convinced the Patterson family to leave my hotel room door. I waited another 30 minutes before venturing out, knowing they'd likely be watching for me. When I finally emerged, I found James sitting in the hallway looking exhausted. They're in the conference room downstairs, he said without preamble, waiting for you. Let them wait. He stood up, straightening his wrinkled tuxedo. You know, part of me is impressed. Nobody's ever stood up to them like this. You could have, I pointed out. No, I couldn't. I'm too deep in the family business, too dependent on the connections. He paused. But you're free, aren't you? You always were. We just couldn't see it. I studied my brother-in-law, perhaps seeing him clearly for the first time. Why are you really here, James? To warn you, Dad's calling lawyers' mothers having a breakdown, and Madison, She's beyond rational. Ryan keeps saying he can fix this if you'll just talk to him. There's nothing to fix, it's done. The marriage? Everything. The marriage, the pretense, the whole charade. I started walking toward the elevator. Tell them I'll be down in 10 minutes. Might as well end this properly. The conference room was in chaos when I entered. Madison still wore her wedding dress, now wrinkled and stained with tears. Patricia sat rigid in a chair, her perfect makeup destroyed. Richard paced by the windows, barking into his phone. Ryan stood when he saw me, his face a mixture of anger and desperation. "How could you—" Madison shrieked, jumping to her feet. "You destroyed my wedding, the most important day of my life." "I paid for your wedding," I corrected calmly. "Every penny of it, which makes it mine to destroy." "You vindictive witch!" Patricia stood pointing a shaking finger at me. "You planned this. You've been planning this all along." Actually, I only started planning it when I discovered Ryan was meeting with divorce attorneys. Before that, I was just a fool subsidizing your lifestyle. Richard ended his call and turned to me, his face purple with rage. "You think you're clever, I'll sue you for breach of contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud." I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. "Speaking of fraud, would you like to hear the recording of you and Ryan discussing how to steal my company in a divorce? Or perhaps Madison explaining that lowborn blood is different from ours? I have months of recordings, Richard. Every insult, every scheme, every moment your family plotted against me while spending my money." "You recorded us," Patricia gasped, "in our own home." "In my home, too. The one I paid for while Ryan pretended to have a job." I looked at my soon-to-be ex-husband. 8 months, Ryan. 8 months of lies while you spent $40,000 maintaining appearances. "I was trying to protect you," Ryan exploded. "Do you know what it's like to be a Patterson and fail to lose your job and know your whole family will see you as worthless?" "Do I know what it's like to be seen as worthless?" I laughed bitterly. "I've been treated as worthless by your family since the day we met. The difference is I proved them wrong. You proved them right." "Don't you dare." "What? Tell the truth." "Fine, let's have some truth." I opened my tablet and pulled up documents. "Here's the truth. TechFlow Solutions made $12 million last year. I built it from nothing while your family called me trailer trash. Here's more truth. Every vendor at this wedding has stories about Madison's cruelty. She made 3 different employees cry. She threatened to destroy small businesses over tissue paper colors." "They're lying," Madison protested. "I have written statements from 23 vendors and staff members," I continued, "all detailing verbal abuse threats and demands for unpaid labor. You're a monster, Madison, and everyone knows it." "How dare you?" Patricia stood to slap me, but I caught her wrist. "No more," I said firmly. "No more accepting your abuse because of some misguided idea about family harmony. You're nothing but bullies with trust funds, and even those are running out." "Please." Ryan's voice broke. "Andrea, please. Let's go somewhere private and talk. We can work this out." I released Patricia's wrist and faced my husband. "What's there to work out? You were planning to divorce me and take half my company." "That was just insurance. Dad made me—" "You don't understand the pressure." "I understand perfectly. You chose your family over your wife. You chose their approval over my dignity. You chose maintaining a lie over admitting truth." "But I love you." "No," I said quietly. "You loved what I could do for you. Pay your bills. Cover your lies. Take your family's abuse so you didn't have to. That's not love, Ryan. That's exploitation." Derek, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. "Madison, is it true? Did you really treat the vendors that way?" "They're exaggerating," she said quickly. "You know how sensitive service people can be." "Service people." Derek stared at his new wife. "Did you really just say that?" "What's wrong with—" "My mother was a service person before she married my father," Derek said coldly. "She worked 2 jobs to put herself through college. Dad fell in love with her work ethic, not her bloodline." "That's different." Madison stammered. She married up. She improved herself. By whose standards? Derek pulled off his wedding ring and set it on the table. I thought I knew you, Madison, but the woman I married wouldn't mock someone for their background or abuse workers because she could. Derek, no. Madison lunged for him, but he stepped back. You can't leave me. We just got married. A marriage built on lies and cruelty. He looked at me. I apologize, Andrea. If I'd known, I never would have let this happen. My family doesn't behave this way. Your family has class, I said, something money can't buy. Richard slammed his hand on the table. Enough. This is all fixable. Derek, son, let's not make hasty decisions. Andrea, name your price. What will it take to make this go away? Go away. I smiled. This isn't going away, Richard. By tomorrow, everyone in Hartford will know the truth about the Patterson family. How you live beyond your means on other people's money. How you treat anyone you consider beneath you. How your golden boy has been unemployed for 8 months while his wife funded your lifestyle. You wouldn't dare go public, Patricia hissed. I don't have to. Madison's wedding guests are already posting about it. Wedding of the year turns into disaster. Society bride's reception canceled by sister-in-law. Patterson family secrets exposed. The internet moves fast. I pulled up my phone showing them social media posts already going viral. Photos of the empty reception hall, videos of vendors packing up speculation about what caused the collapse. You've ruined us, Richard said, his voice hollow. Destroyed our reputation. You destroyed yourselves, I corrected. I just stopped enabling it. What do you want? Ryan asked desperately. The house money. What will make this stop? I want a divorce, I said simply. Uncontested. You get nothing from my company. You can have the house and its mortgage. I keep my business and my dignity. That's all. He looked stunned. That's everything. I picked up my phone. My lawyer will send papers Monday. Sign them and we're done. Fight me, and I release every recording, every document, every piece of evidence showing what frauds you all are. You can't threaten us, Patricia snarled. It's not a threat. It's a promise. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Madison. That $50,000 in wedding gifts from the guests, I'll be donating it to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, kids from trailer parks and working-class families. Your wedding will help people like me achieve their dreams. Isn't that lovely? Madison's scream followed me out the door, but I didn't look back. In the lobby, I found Maria boxing up the last of the wedding decor. How are you doing? I asked. She smiled tiredly. Better than the bride. Derek left with his family. Said he needs to think about an annulment. Good for him. The staff wanted me to thank you. The tips you authorized. Some of these kids will be able to pay off student loans. You changed lives tonight. They earned it dealing with Madison. Maria handed me a box. The cake topper. I thought you might want it. Symbolic, you know. I looked at the porcelain bride and groom, their faces frozen in perfect happiness. Then I dropped it in the nearest trash can. Some symbols need to be broken. I returned to my suite and found housekeeping had delivered a bottle of champagne with a note. Compliments of the staff. Thank you for treating us with respect. I poured a glass and stood on my balcony watching the moon rise over the ocean. My phone buzzed constantly with messages, but I ignored them all. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and logistics dividing assets and cutting ties. But tonight, I was free. The Patterson family had spent years telling me I wasn't good enough, that my blood, my background, my very existence was less than theirs. They'd used my success while denying my worth, taken my money while giving no respect. But in the end, their bloodline couldn't pay for a wedding. Their breeding couldn't build a business. Their superiority was as fake as Ryan's employment, as hollow as Madison's vows. I raised my glass to the ocean, toasting every girl from a trailer park who'd been told she wasn't enough, every woman who'd built her success while others took credit, every person who'd finally said no more to those who confused cruelty with class. The Pattersons thought they were royalty, but their kingdom was built on lies, and the peasant girl they'd mocked had just staged a revolution. Long live the Queen. By Sunday morning, the Patterson wedding disaster had become the scandal of the decade in Hartford society. I woke to hundreds of notifications on my phone and emails from reporters requesting comments. Someone had compiled videos from guests into a viral Twitter thread titled, "Real Housewives Could Never Society Wedding Implodes in Real Time." I ignored them all and ordered breakfast, enjoying my coffee while scrolling through the damage. The Hartford Courier had already posted a story, "Prominent Patterson Family Faces Scandal After Wedding Catastrophe." The comments section was brutal but honest, with many vendors finally feeling free to share their own Patterson horror stories. My phone rang. Janet, my CFO. "Good morning, boss. I'm guessing you've seen the internet." Hard to miss. How are we handling it from a company perspective? I've drafted a statement confirming that TechFlow Solutions has no connection to Patterson family businesses and operates independently. Simple, clean, no commentary on personal matters. Perfect. Send it if anyone asks. How's the scholarship fund setup going? Already in motion. The Madison Patterson Wedding Fund for first-generation students. I love the irony. She wanted her wedding to be memorable. Now it will help deserving kids for years to come. After breakfast, I packed my belongings and prepared to check out. My flight wasn't until evening, but I wanted to leave the resort before any more confrontations. As I zipped my suitcase, someone knocked softly on my door. "Andrea, it's James. I'm alone." I opened the door to find my brother-in-law looking haggard. His tuxedo was gone, replaced by jeans and a wrinkled polo shirt. "Can I come in just for a minute?" I stepped aside. He entered and stood awkwardly by the window, clearly struggling with what to say. "Derek filed for annulment this morning." He finally began. "His family's lawyers are claiming fraud. Madison never told him she wasn't paying for the wedding. That's between them. She's destroyed, locked herself in her room, won't speak to anyone except to scream about suing you." "Let her try. I have receipts for everything." James nodded slowly. "You know, I used to wonder why you stayed, why you put up with us. The comments, the exclusion, the constant reminders that you weren't quite good enough. And I thought it was because you needed us, our connections, our name, our world." He laughed bitterly. "But you never needed any of it, did you? You stayed for Ryan. You loved him." "I loved who I thought he was." "Yeah." James stared out at the ocean. "We all became who our parents expected us to be. Ryan, the golden boy who couldn't admit failure. Madison, the princess who confused cruelty with class. Me, the spare heir who goes along to get along." "You could still change." "Maybe, but first I need to tell you something." He turned to face me. "Last year, when you won that government contract, Dad tried to sabotage it. He had connections at the Pentagon, wanted to prove you couldn't succeed without the Patterson name, but you won anyway on merit." I wasn't surprised, just disappointed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth, all of it, and because I'm sorry. Not just for that, but for every time I stood silent while they diminished you. Every family dinner where you were insulted. Every celebration where your achievements were dismissed. Thank you for that." He headed for the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, you're the most successful person I know, not just financially, but as a human being. You built something real while we just inherited illusions." After he left, I finished packing and checked out. The resort staff was exceptionally kind, several stopping to thank me again for the generous tips. At the airport, I settled into the first-class lounge and finally checked my messages. 17 voicemails from Ryan, ranging from anger to bargaining to tears. I deleted them all unheard. 43 texts from Madison, all variations of threats and insults. Delete. One message from Patricia, a voice message I played out of curiosity. "You horrible, vindictive creature," her recorded voice hissed. "You've destroyed a family legacy that took generations to build. Ryan is broken. Madison's marriage is over. Our name is ruined. I hope you're satisfied with your petty revenge." I smiled and deleted that too. Petty revenge would have been spilling wine on Madison's dress or giving a mean toast. This was justice served at exactly the right temperature. The flight home was peaceful. I used the time to review acquisition proposals for TechFlow and plan our next quarter. By the time we landed in Hartford, I'd approved 2 new hires and sketched out an expansion plan that would double our revenue within 18 months. Sarah met me at my house, which already felt more like a property than a home. "The divorce papers are ready. I've already sent copies to Ryan's lawyer." "Any response?" His attorney seemed relieved, actually. Apparently, Ryan tried to hire him to fight for half your company, but once the lawyer saw the evidence, he advised accepting your terms. "Smart man." "The house?" "He can have it. I've already found a penthouse downtown. Closer to the office, better security, and no memories of the Pattersons." We spent the evening organizing documents and planning next steps. By the time Sarah left, everything was in motion. The marriage that had defined 5 years of my life would be over within months. That night, I sat in my soon-to-be former home, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. My phone rang one last time, a number I didn't recognize. "Andrea. This is Susan Chen, the florist." "Susan, how are you?" "Wonderful, actually. I wanted to thank you again for your kindness, and to tell you that 3 other florists who've dealt with the Pattersons reached out today. We're starting an informal network sharing information about difficult clients. No one will be caught off guard again." "That's brilliant. It was inspired by you, standing up to bullies supporting each other. You changed more than just your own life this weekend." After we hung up, I poured a glass of wine and made a list, not of things to do, but of things I'd learned. Love couldn't overcome fundamental differences in values. Kindness wasn't weakness, but cruelty disguised as strength was. Money revealed character, it didn't create it. And sometimes the best revenge wasn't living well, but simply living truthfully. The Pattersons had taught me one valuable lesson: knowing your worth wasn't about bloodlines or bank accounts. It was about building something real, treating people with respect, and refusing to shrink yourself to fit someone else's narrow definition of acceptable. Tomorrow I'd wake up in a house that wasn't really mine, preparing to leave a life that had never quite fit. But I'd also wake up as myself fully and unapologetically. No more apologizing for my background. No more dimming my success. No more accepting less than I deserved. The trailer park girl had grown up to be a CEO, and she was just getting started. Monday morning arrived with a media storm. The Hartford business community was buzzing with the Patterson scandal, and my phone hadn't stopped ringing since dawn. I let everything go to voicemail and focused on getting to my office early. TechFlow Solutions occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown high-rise, a far cry from the garage, where I'd started coding. My team was already assembled when I arrived, their faces showing a mixture of concern and curiosity. "All right," I addressed the conference room. "I know you've all seen the news. My personal life has become unfortunately public, but I want to assure everyone that TechFlow remains strong, independent, and unaffected by the Patterson family drama." "Are we facing any blowback?" asked David, my head of sales. "Actually," Janet interjected, "we've received 3 new partnership inquiries this morning. Apparently standing up to bullies is good for business." I smiled. "Then let's focus on what we do best, building great software and treating people with respect. The rest is just noise." After the meeting, I retreated to my office to find my assistant Marcus fielding calls with practiced ease. "No, Mrs. Patterson is not available for interviews. Yes, TechFlow Solutions remains committed to all contracts. No, we have no comment on personal matters." He hung up and turned to me. "That's the 20th reporter today." "You're doing great, Marcus. Keep stonewalling them." "Your lawyer is in your office. She said it was urgent." I found Sarah pacing by my windows, her usually calm demeanor replaced with barely contained excitement. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's actually going very right." She handed me a document. Ryan signed the divorce papers. All of them. No contest, no negotiations, No counter proposals. I sank into my chair, staring at the signatures. That was fast. It gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective. She pulled out her phone. The Patterson family holdings are in free fall. 3 major clients pulled out of Richard's firm this morning. The country club is reviewing their membership. And Madison... What about Madison? Derek's family issued a statement. The marriage was annulled on grounds of fraud. Apparently, Madison told Derek that she was independently wealthy, that the wedding was her gift to their families. He's suing for emotional distress. He won't win that. No, but the publicity is devastating. Madison's been dropped from every charity board in Hartford. The Junior League actually issued a statement distancing themselves from her values and behavior. I should have felt triumphant, but mostly I just felt tired. What about Ryan? Sarah's expression softened. He's moved back with his parents. His father had to rehire him at the family firm, but at an entry-level position. His credit is destroyed, and the house is in foreclosure proceedings. Already it's been 2 days. Apparently he hadn't made a mortgage payment in 6 months. He was using your money for everything else but forgot the actual bills. I laughed despite myself. Of course he did. There's one more thing. Sarah pulled out an envelope. This came to my office this morning, from Ryan. I recognized his handwriting immediately. Part of me wanted to throw it away unread, but curiosity won. I opened it carefully. Andrea, I know I have no right to ask for your time, but I need you to know some things. Not excuses, just truth. You were right about everything. I lost myself trying to be what my family expected. I was weak choosing their approval over your love. I let them treat you terribly because I was terrified of being cast out like you were. But you were never cast out, were you? You were free. You built an empire while I built nothing but lies. You earned respect while I inherited contempt. You loved me despite my family, and I betrayed you because of them. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that the man you married in that little courthouse chapel 5 years ago, he did exist. He loved you completely. He just wasn't strong enough to survive the pressure of being a Patterson. You are the strongest person I've ever known. Not because you endured our cruelty, but because you never let it change who you are. You're still that brilliant, kind, ambitious girl from Nebraska. Money didn't make you better. It just revealed who you always were. I'm in therapy now. Real therapy, not the kind my mother approves of. I'm trying to figure out who I am without the Patterson name, without the expectations, without the lies. It's terrifying and necessary. Thank you for the house, though I'm selling it. Thank you for not destroying me completely, though you had every right. Thank you for 5 years of love I didn't deserve and couldn't protect. I hope you find someone worthy of you. Someone who sees your success as inspiring, not threatening. Someone who knows that trailer parks can produce queens and mansions can produce cowards. Be happy, Andrea. You've earned it 1,000 times over. Ryan. I read it twice, then handed it to Sarah. What do you think? She scanned it quickly. I think therapy is 20 years too late, but at least he's trying. Yeah. I folded the letter and tucked it away. At least he's trying. The rest of the morning was a whirlwind of meetings and damage control. By lunch, the media requests had shifted from scandal-seeking to genuine interest in my business success. Forbes wanted a profile on self-made female CEOs. The Wall Street Journal was interested in our government contracts. Tech Weekly wanted to feature our innovative coding programs for underprivileged youth. You're becoming the face of entrepreneurial success, Marcus said, bringing me lunch. The ultimate American dream story. Just yesterday, I was the villain who ruined a fairy tale wedding. The internet has a short memory. Today, you're the hero who stood up to entitled elitists. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then saw the preview. This is Derek Whitfield. I opened it fully. This is Derek Whitfield. I wanted to apologize personally for my family's part in Saturday's events. Would you be available for coffee? I have a business proposition. Interesting. I showed it to Marcus, who raised an eyebrow. The annulled groom wants to meet, apparently. Could be a trap, or he could be genuinely interested in business. I thought about Derek's reaction at the wedding, his genuine surprise at Madison's behavior. Set it up for tomorrow, somewhere public. Let's see what he wants. That afternoon, I met with my development team about our new AI integration project. It felt good to focus on building, rather than destroying, creating, rather than canceling. This was my real life, my true passion. The Patterson drama was just a detour. Around 4 o'clock, Marcus knocked on my door. "You have a visitor. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." "Who?" "Patricia Patterson." I sat back stunned. My mother-in-law is here. Former mother-in-law. Should I send her away? I considered it, then shook my head. No, give me 5 minutes, then send her in. And Marcus, stay close. Patricia entered my office like a queen in exile. Her usual designer suit was impeccable, but her face showed the strain of recent events. She sat without invitation, studying my office with obvious surprise. "It's very impressive," she admitted grudgingly. "What do you want, Patricia?" She flinched at my directness. "I suppose I deserve that. I came to propose a truce." "A truce? We're not at war. I'm just done being your victim." "You've destroyed my family," she said quietly. "My daughter's marriage, my son's future, my husband's business. Was your revenge worth it?" "I didn't destroy anything. I simply stopped paying for your illusions. If your family collapsed without my money, what does that say about your foundation?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Richard is leaving me." "What?" "He blames me for pushing Ryan to marry well, for encouraging Madison's behavior, for creating what he calls a toxic environment of superiority." She laughed bitterly. 40 years of marriage, and he's running to his mistress in Boston. "I'm sorry," I said, surprised to find I meant it. I tormented you for 5 years. Belittled you, excluded you, made you feel worthless. Yes, you did. But I don't take pleasure in anyone's pain, not even yours. She studied me with something like wonder. "You mean that? God, you actually mean that?" She pulled out a handkerchief and dabbed at her eyes. "I came here to beg. Can you imagine a Patterson begging? What could you possibly want from me? Madison needs help, real help. She's had a breakdown. The doctors say it's been building for years. The perfectionism, the cruelty, the desperate need to be superior. It all came from me." Her voice broke. "I created a monster because I was one myself." "What kind of help?" "Financial. The treatment facility is expensive and with Richard freezing assets." She trailed off, unable to finish. I leaned back, processing this reversal. Patricia Patterson, who'd spent years telling me I wasn't good enough, was asking for my charity. "I'll pay for Madison's treatment," I said finally. "Not for you, not for her, but because mental health matters. But there are conditions." "Anything." She writes apology letters to every vendor she abused. Real apologies acknowledging specific actions. You do the same for every person you've treated as beneath you, starting with my parents. Patricia's face went white. "Your parents?" "The factory worker and the waitress you mocked at our wedding. The people whose genetics you found so offensive. They're retired now, living in Florida on their savings and my success. They deserve to hear that their daughter was never less than anyone else." Yes, you're right. And Patricia, get help for yourself too. Whatever made you believe that bloodlines determine worth, whatever insecurity drove you to crush others, to feel tall, deal with it. Or you'll end up alone, surrounded by the ashes of bridges you burned. She stood shakily. "You're a remarkable woman, Andrea. I was too blind to see it." "No," I corrected. "You saw it. That's why you worked so hard to diminish me. You knew I was everything you claimed to value: successful, intelligent, determined. But I achieved it without your advantages, and that terrified you." She nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "You're right. God help me, you're right about everything." After she left, I sat alone in my office watching the sun set over Hartford. The city I'd conquered through hard work and determination, not birthright or connections. In 1 week, everything had changed. The Patterson dynasty had crumbled. My marriage was over. My business was thriving. And I was finally completely, unapologetically myself. My phone rang. Janet's name appeared on the screen. "Hey boss, just wanted to let you know the scholarship fund is officially established. The first recipients will be announced next month." From Madison's wedding fund, "Every penny, $50,000 in gifts plus your additional contribution. We can fund 10 full rides to state schools." I smiled, thinking about kids like me getting their chance. Make sure one of them is from Nebraska. "Already on it. Oh, and Andrea, the team wanted me to tell you something." "What's that?" "We're proud of you. Not for the business success, but for standing up for yourself. For all of us who've ever been made to feel small." After the call, I gathered my things and headed home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new paths to explore. But tonight I'd celebrate quietly. Not the destruction of the Pattersons, but the construction of my own life on my own terms. The trailer park girl had become a queen, and her reign was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the wedding disaster, and Hartford society had found new scandals to whisper about. The Patterson name still carried weight, but it was the weight of cautionary tales rather than respect. I'd settled into my new penthouse, my divorce was finalized, and TechFlow Solutions had landed 3 major contracts that would have been impossible when I was just Ryan Patterson's inappropriate wife. The meeting with Derek Whitfield had led to an unexpected partnership. His family's investment firm needed tech modernization, and my company needed East Coast establishment connections. It was purely business, but it worked. Derek had learned hard lessons about due diligence in both love and commerce. On a crisp October morning, I was reviewing quarterly reports when Marcus knocked on my door. "Your 10 o'clock is here, Madison Patterson." I looked up, surprised. After 6 months of intensive therapy, Madison had requested a meeting. I'd been funding her treatment as promised, receiving monthly progress reports, but no direct contact. "Send her in." The woman who entered my office bore little resemblance to the entitled princess from the wedding. Madison had lost the sharp edges both physically and emotionally. Her designer clothes were replaced with simple, elegant pieces. Her makeup was minimal. Most surprisingly, her eyes held something I'd never seen before: humility. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly, "and for everything." I gestured to a chair. "How are you doing?" "Better. Different. Dr. Reeves says I'm making progress, but I have a long way to go." She folded her hands in her lap. "I came to apologize. Really apologize, not just because my therapist suggested it." "I'm listening." "I was cruel to you, systematically, deliberately cruel. I treated you as less than human because I was terrified of anyone seeing me as less than perfect." She took a shaky breath. "The trailer park comments, the exclusion, the constant reminders that you didn't belong. I'm ashamed of every word." "Why did you do it?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because you had something I couldn't buy or inherit. You built your success. You earned your place. Every time I looked at you, I saw evidence that everything I'd been taught about superiority was a lie. So I tried to tear you down to build myself up. And now I'm 28 years old with no skills, no real relationships, and no idea who I am without my family name." She looked at me directly. "But I'm learning. I'm volunteering at a women's shelter, the one you donate to. I'm taking online courses in nonprofit management. I'm trying to build something real for the first time in my life." "That's good, Madison, really. I have something for you." She pulled out a folder. Apology letters to every vendor from the wedding. I tracked them all down, met with most in person. Susan Chen, the florist. She's teaching me ikebana. Says it helps with patience and humility. I flipped through the letters, seeing genuine remorse in her careful words. This must have been hard. The hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than losing Derek. Harder than watching my family fall apart. But necessary. She paused. I also wrote to your parents. Sent it last week. I don't know if they'll read it, but I needed them to know how wrong I was. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Just got the strangest letter from that Patterson girl. Hell must have frozen over. She actually sounds sorry. You okay, honey? I showed Madison the text and she managed a small smile. Your mom seems nice. She is. She also makes the best pot roast in Nebraska and can stretch $1 further than anyone I know. Skills that matter more than bloodlines. I know that now. Madison stood to leave. I won't take more of your time. I just needed to say this in person. Thank you for paying for my treatment. Thank you for holding me accountable. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. After she left, I sat thinking about transformation and redemption. Madison would never be a friend, but maybe she could become a decent person. It was a start. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and decisions. At 5, I was preparing to leave when Marcus appeared with an envelope. This just arrived by courier, no return address. Inside was a single photograph, the courthouse steps where Ryan and I had married 5 years ago. On the back in Ryan's handwriting, the only real thing I ever did. Be happy, A. I stared at the photo, remembering that day. We'd been so young, so convinced that love could overcome any obstacle. In a way, we'd been right. Love had overcome everything, just not in the way we'd expected. My love for myself had finally overcome their attempts to diminish me. That evening, I attended a charity gala for the scholarship fund. The first recipients had been selected 10 bright kids from working-class families, all heading to college with full rides. I sat at the head table, no longer relegated to the back corner, and watched their faces shine with possibility. Excuse me, Ms. Patterson. A young woman approached, clutching an acceptance letter. I'm Emma Rodriguez. I'm one of the scholarship recipients. I just wanted to thank you. My parents clean offices at night. No one in my family has ever been to college before. What are you planning to study? Computer science. I want to build things, create things, like you did. Then you will, I said firmly. Hard work, determination, and refusing to let anyone tell you that you don't belong. That's all it takes. As Emma walked away, beaming, James Patterson appeared at my elbow. He looked healthier than he had 6 months ago, clearer somehow. Quite a transformation, he said, gesturing to the event. From Madison's wedding disaster to this. How are you, James? Employed, surprisingly. After Dad fired me for disloyalty, I got a job with a startup. Actual work for actual pay. It's terrifying and wonderful. He paused. I heard you paid for Madison's treatment. She's family, or was. Either way, she needed help. You're a better person than any of us deserved. He raised his glass. To the Queen of Hartford, long may she reign. I clinked glasses with him, then watched him disappear into the crowd. The Pattersons were scattered now, each finding their own path away from the toxic legacy of superiority. Richard in Boston with his mistress learning that money without respect bought very little. Patricia in therapy writing apology letters to a lifetime of people she'd wronged. Madison rebuilding herself from scratch. James working for a living. And Ryan, he's doing better, James had told me earlier. Still in therapy, still at Dad's firm, but actually working. He sold the house lives in a small apartment downtown. Says he's learning to be himself for the first time. The gala continued late into the evening. Business leaders who'd once ignored me now sought my opinion. Journalists wanted to profile my company. Young entrepreneurs asked for advice. I gave it freely, remembering what it felt like to be hungry for guidance and getting only condescension. As I was leaving, I spotted a familiar face by the valet stand. Susan Chen, the florist, dressed elegantly and chatting with other business owners. Andrea. She hugged me warmly. Did you hear I got the contract for the governor's ball? Beating out 3 bigger firms. They said my work at the Patterson wedding, even with the cancellation, showed grace under pressure. You deserve it, Susan. Your work is art. It's more than that. After you stood up to them, everything changed. People stopped accepting abuse from wealthy clients. We have standards now, contracts with dignity clauses. You started something. I drove home through Hartford's quiet streets thinking about ripple effects. One person standing up, refusing to accept less than they deserved, inspiring others to do the same. The Pattersons had thought they were teaching me my place. Instead, they'd taught me my power. My penthouse was peaceful, filled with plants and books and art chosen for joy rather than status. No antique furniture with pedigrees longer than histories. No portraits of stern ancestors judging from gilded frames. Just space and light and possibility. I poured a glass of wine and stood on my balcony looking out over the city lights. Somewhere out there, Ryan was in his small apartment learning to live without pretense. Madison was studying building skills rather than walls. Patricia was writing apologies, one painful letter at a time. Richard was discovering that mistresses became less interesting when you had to live with them full time. And somewhere in Nebraska, a girl in a trailer park was dreaming of bigger things, not knowing yet that she could achieve them. Maybe she'd apply for the scholarship next year. Maybe she'd build the next great company. Maybe she'd change the world. I raised my glass to her, to all of them, to everyone who'd been told they weren't enough. We were more than enough. We were everything. The stars were bright above Hartford, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Not free from the Pattersons, but free to be myself. The girl from the trailer park, the woman who built an empire, the queen who knew her worth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to lift others as I climbed. But tonight, I simply stood in my hard-won peace, grateful for every struggle that had brought me here. The fairy tale was over. Real life was so much better. 2 years after the Patterson wedding implosion, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. TechFlow Solutions had gone public, making me officially a multimillionaire at 34. The IPO had been covered by every major financial publication, with my story of overcoming adversity resonating far beyond Hartford. On a warm September morning, I stood before a crowd at the University of Connecticut, delivering the keynote address for their Women in Technology Symposium. Looking out at the eager faces, I saw myself at 22 hungry for knowledge and acceptance. Success isn't about where you come from, I told them. It's about where you're determined to go. 2 years ago, I was told I didn't belong at a family wedding because my blood wasn't good enough. Today, I employ 300 people, and our innovations help millions. The only bloodline that matters is the one that carries determination through your veins. After my speech, I met with scholarship recipients, including Emma Rodriguez, now a sophomore thriving in her computer science program. She showed me an app she was developing to help first-generation students navigate college bureaucracy. "You inspired me," she said shyly, "to build something that matters." "You inspired yourself. I just paid the tuition." That afternoon, I had a meeting I'd been both anticipating and dreading. Marcus Hawthorne, CEO of a Seattle-based tech giant, had been courting both my company and me personally for months. He was brilliant, kind, and refreshingly direct, everything Ryan had pretended to be. "So," Marcus said over lunch at a quiet restaurant, "have you given more thought to the merger?" "The business merger or the personal one?" I asked, glancing at the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. "Both ideally, though I understand they're separate decisions." I'd met Marcus at a tech conference 6 months earlier. He'd approached me after my panel on ethical AI, engaging in a debate that lasted through dinner and into the early morning. He knew my history, had Googled the Patterson scandal, and didn't care except to admire how I'd handled it. "I need more time," I said honestly. "My last merger didn't go well." "Your last merger was with someone who saw you as an asset to exploit. I see you as a partner to cherish." He leaned forward. "I don't need your money, Andrea. I don't need your connections. I just need you brilliant and fierce and unwilling to settle for less than you deserve." "You've been reading too many romance novels." "Actually, I've been reading your code. The elegance of your algorithms is poetry." He grinned. "Though I admit the woman who wrote them is even more impressive." That evening, I attended the opening of the Chen Family Florist Academy, Susan's new venture teaching floral design to disadvantaged youth. The building was beautiful, purchased with a combination of her savings and a small business grant from the scholarship fund. "None of this would have happened without you," Susan said, squeezing my hand. "You did the work. I just refused to let Madison destroy you. No, you showed us that we had power too, that we didn't have to accept abuse because someone had money." She gestured to her students, young people learning both art and business. "Every one of them knows their worth because you taught us ours." As I was leaving, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't seen in over a year. "Andrea, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know I just made partner at a firm in Chicago. A real position earned through actual work. Thank you for forcing me to become real. Ryan." I stared at the message, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Pride that he'd found his way, sadness for what we'd lost, relief that we'd both moved beyond the toxic dynamics that had nearly destroyed us. "Good for you," I typed back. "Be happy. You too, you deserve everything good." I deleted the conversation and drove home, finding Marcus waiting in my lobby with takeout from my favorite Thai place. "Thought you might be hungry after the event," he said. "Plus I have a presentation to make." "A presentation, it's 8 p.m. The best ideas don't follow business hours." In my penthouse, he set up his laptop while I changed into comfortable clothes. His presentation was titled, "Why Andrea Patterson Should Take a Chance on Love Again, a Data-Driven Analysis." "You're ridiculous," I laughed. "I prefer thorough." He clicked through slides showing compatibility metrics, shared values assessments, and projected happiness indicators. As you can see, the data supports a positive outcome. "What about the Patterson factor? The baggage, the trust issues, the fact that I've been married before?" He closed the laptop and took my hands. "Everyone has baggage. Yours just made headlines. But you handled it with grace, humor, and strength. You didn't let it make you bitter or closed off. That's remarkable." "I was bitter for a while." "But you channeled it into positive change. The scholarship fund has helped 50 students now. Your mentorship program has launched 12 new businesses. You turned pain into purpose." He squeezed my hands gently. "I'm not Ryan. I don't need you to be less so I can feel like more. Your success inspires me to reach higher." I thought about walls and trust, about second chances and new beginnings. "One date," I said finally. "A real date, not a business dinner that turns personal." His smile could have powered the city. "I'll pick you up Saturday at 7. Wear something comfortable. We're going kayaking." "Kayaking? You mentioned you loved being on the water but never had time. I thought we'd watch the sunset from the Connecticut River." After he left, I called my mother, who'd been asking about that nice Marcus boy for months. "I'm going on a date," I told her. "About time you've been alone long enough. Not every man is a Patterson." "I know, it's just scary opening up again." "Honey, you faced down an entire family of bullies at a society wedding. A nice man who treats you well should be easy compared to that." She was right as usual. I'd conquered corporate boardrooms and social hierarchies. Maybe it was time to conquer my fear of vulnerability, too. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Marcus showed up exactly at 7, wearing jeans and a fleece jacket, looking nothing like the CEO who commanded board meetings. We drove to the river in his truck, talking about everything except business. "I have to ask," I said as he unloaded the kayaks. "No assistant to handle this. No fancy yacht." "I grew up in Oregon," he said. "My dad was a park ranger. Some of my best memories are on rivers like this, just paddling and talking. Thought you might like the simplicity after all the Patterson productions." We spent the evening on the water watching herons fish and the sun paint the sky in impossible colors. Marcus told stories about his childhood, his struggles building his company, his disaster of a marriage to a woman who'd loved his potential wealth more than him. "We have that in common," I said, trailing my hand in the water. "Choosing people who saw us as opportunities rather than partners. Maybe that makes us perfect for each other. We know what real looks like now." As darkness fell, we floated side by side looking at the stars reflected in the calm water. It was peaceful in a way my life hadn't been for years. No pretense, no performance, just two people sharing a moment. I could get used to this, I admitted. The kayaking or the company, both. He reached over and took my hand, our kayaks drifting together. I'm patient, Andrea. However long it takes for you to trust again, I'll be here, building my own empire while admiring yours. Back at my penthouse, he walked me to my door like we were teenagers. Thank you for taking a chance, he said softly. Thank you for making it feel safe to try. He kissed me then, gentle and sure, nothing like the desperate passion Ryan and I had mistaken for love. This was calmer, deeper, a beginning, rather than a race to somewhere. After he left, I stood on my balcony thinking about cycles and growth. 2 years ago, I'd stood on a different balcony watching my marriage implode in Hawaii. I thought it was an ending, but it had been a transformation. The Pattersons had given me an inadvertent gift. By showing me what I didn't want, they'd clarified what I did. A partner who celebrated my success. A family earned through respect rather than blood. A life built on truth rather than appearances. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Saw your keynote online. You were amazing. Thank you for showing me strength isn't about stepping on others but lifting them up. Graduating next month with my nonprofit management degree. Would love you to come if you're willing. I'll be there, I typed back. Another text from Patricia. Richard had a heart attack. Minor but scary. In the hospital, he asked for you. Says he owes you an apology. No obligation, just passing along the message. I sighed, considering. Tomorrow I'd visit Richard. Not for him, but for closure. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about absolving others, but about freeing yourself from the weight of anger. Tonight, though, I was exactly where I needed to be. Successful on my own terms. Open to love, but not desperate for it. Surrounded by people who valued authenticity over artifice. The trailer park girl had become a tech mogul. The discarded wife had become a sought-after partner. The woman deemed not good enough had become the standard others aspired to reach. But most importantly, I'd become myself, fully unapologetically, joyfully myself. And that was worth more than all the Patterson money and status in the world. The stars were bright above Hartford, and life was full of possibility. I raised a glass of wine to the night sky, toasting new beginnings and the courage to embrace them. The best chapter was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the Patterson wedding disaster, and I stood at another altar this time as a bride who'd chosen her own path. The venue wasn't a Hawaiian resort, but a Connecticut nature preserve with wildflowers instead of imported orchids, and only 50 guests instead of 200 strangers. Marcus waited for me under an oak tree, his smile warm and genuine. No pretense, no performance, just two people who'd built something real together. Emma Rodriguez stood as my maid of honor, having graduated summa cum laude and joined TechFlow as our youngest senior developer. Susan Chen had done the flowers, creating beauty from local blooms that cost a fraction of Madison's exotic arrangements, but held twice the meaning. You look radiant, my mother whispered, adjusting my simple silk dress. And happy, really happy. I am Mom. For the first time in my life, I know exactly who I am and what I want. The ceremony was brief and personal, officiated by a friend who knew our real story, not a stranger performing for show. Marcus and I had written vows that spoke of partnership and growth, of supporting each other's dreams rather than competing for spotlight. I promise to celebrate your victories as my own, Marcus said, and to remind you of your strength when you forget it yourself. I promise to build beside you, not behind you, I replied, and to choose honesty over comfort always. As we kissed, sealing a union based on truth rather than facade, I caught sight of unexpected faces in the small crowd. James Patterson sat with his wife and new baby, having built his own life away from toxic expectations. Madison was there too, now running a successful nonprofit that helped women escape abusive relationships. She'd sent a note with her RSVP. Thank you for showing me that real power comes from lifting others. Best wishes on your true fairy tale. The reception was held in a renovated barn decorated with lights and laughter rather than crystal and pretense. Instead of assigned seating that reinforced hierarchies, we'd arranged round tables where CEOs sat beside students, where my parents shared stories with Marcus's family, where everyone belonged equally. No seating chart drama this time, Susan teased as she helped me bustle my dress. Everyone has a seat at our table, I said simply. That's the only rule that matters. During toasts, Emma stood nervously clutching her champagne glass. 5 years ago, I was a kid from the Bronx who thought college was for other people. Then Andrea Patterson created a scholarship from the ashes of a disaster, turning pain into possibility. She didn't just pay my tuition, she showed me that success isn't about where you come from, but where you're determined to go. Marcus's business partner spoke next, joking about how their merger negotiations had turned into something else entirely. I've never seen someone negotiate harder than Andrea. She wanted equity, transparency, and shared decision-making. I told Marcus he'd better offer the same terms in marriage. My father, who'd flown in from Florida with hands still rough from decades of factory work, stood slowly. My daughter was told she wasn't good enough because her daddy worked with his hands and her mama served coffee. But we taught her that honest work beats inherited wealth every time. Today she employs hundreds and helps thousands. That's our bloodline determination, kindness, and never forgetting where you came from. The evening flowed with genuine joy rather than orchestrated perfection. The band played requests from everyone, not just a pre-approved list. The food was excellent but unfussy, served family style to encourage conversation. Children ran between tables while business deals were sketched on napkins, and new friendships formed over shared wine. Different from your first wedding? Marcus asked as we danced the Connecticut stars visible through the barn's open doors. Everything's different. I'm different. That girl who married Ryan was so desperate to belong that she lost herself trying to fit in. This woman knows she belongs anywhere she chooses to stand. Any regrets? I thought about it seriously. No. Every humiliation, every slight, every moment of pain led me here. The Pattersons taught me what I didn't want to be. Their cruelty clarified my values. Their rejection freed me to build my own life. That's remarkably generous. It's practical. Bitterness is weight I don't need to carry. They're living their consequences. I'm living my dreams. As if summoned by the conversation, my phone buzzed with a message I'd share with Marcus later. Ryan had sent a simple text. Saw the announcement in the Times. Be happy, A. You deserve it all. He'd found his own path working at a small firm in Chicago, dating a teacher who knew his whole story and loved him anyway. The golden boy facade was gone, replaced by something more sustainable. We'd never be friends, but we'd both learned from our mutual destruction. Near midnight, as guests began departing, Patricia Patterson approached hesitantly. She'd aged considerably, her perfect facade softened by therapy and genuine remorse. Andrea, thank you for letting Madison invite me. I didn't expect. Everyone deserves second chances, Patricia, even former monsters-in-law. She smiled weakly at the joke. I wanted to give you this. She handed me an envelope. It's not a wedding gift, it's overdue. I opened it after she left, finding a check for $400,000 and a note, repayment for the wedding that taught us all who we really were. The interest is an apology that can never be adequate. Use it to help another girl who's been told she's not enough, with respect and remorse, Patricia. That's unexpected, Marcus said, reading over my shoulder. She's been working with Madison's nonprofit. Apparently, she's become their biggest donor and volunteer. People can change. Speaking of change, Marcus pulled me onto the dance floor for one last song. Ready for our next adventure? We'd decided to honeymoon not at a 5-star resort, but volunteering with a tech education program in Kenya, teaching coding to kids who reminded us of our younger selves, hungry for knowledge and opportunity. Ready for anything, I said, meaning it. As the evening ended and we prepared to leave, I stood outside the barn looking at the scene we'd created. My two worlds had merged: the scrappy girl from Nebraska and the successful CEO, the discarded first wife, and the cherished partner, the one who didn't belong and the one who created belonging for others. "Hey," a young woman approached shyly. "I'm Sarah. I'm starting at UConn this fall with one of your scholarships. I just wanted to say thank you. My mom cleans houses and my dad drives trucks. No one thought I'd make it to college." "What are you studying?" "Business. I want to start a company someday, like you did." She hesitated. "Do you have any advice?" I thought about everything I'd learned, all the pain and triumph distilled into wisdom. Don't let anyone else define your worth. Not family, not society, not even success. Build something real. Treat people with respect, and remember that the best revenge isn't living well. It's living authentically. That's it. That's everything. She thanked me and ran back to her parents, who stood proudly at the edge of the parking lot in their best clothes. I recognized the look in their eyes, hope mixed with determination, the same look my parents had worn at every school event, every small victory on the way up. Marcus found me there, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Ready to go, Mrs. Hawthorne Patterson." We'd both kept our names adding each other's, rather than erasing our histories. Another small rebellion against tradition, another choice that honored who we really were. "Ready," I said, leaning into his warmth. As we drove away, I thought about the journey from that Hawaiian disaster to this Connecticut triumph. The Pattersons had tried to teach me I was less than them, but they'd actually taught me I was more than their narrow definitions. They'd shown me that inherited privilege was hollow compared to earned success, that cruelty disguised as class fooled only those who participated in it. But most importantly, they'd taught me that lowborn blood was a badge of honor. It meant you'd fought for every achievement. It meant you understood struggle and celebrated others who overcame. It meant you built rather than inherited, created rather than consumed. My phone lit up with messages from scholarship recipients, employees, and friends who'd followed the wedding on social media. Each one a reminder that success wasn't measured in exclusion, but in inclusion, not in stepping on others, but in lifting them up. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked as we pulled onto the highway. "How different this feels. Last time I was trying to prove I belonged. This time I know I do. Everywhere and anywhere I choose." "And where do you choose?" "Right here, building something real with someone who sees me as a partner, not a prize. Creating opportunities for kids who've been told they're not enough. Living proof that bloodlines don't determine worth, choices do." He squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you've got the best bloodline of all. The kind that fights, builds, and never forgets to help others climb." We drove through the night toward our future two people who'd learned that real love wasn't about fairy tales or perfect weddings, but about choosing each other flaws and all every single day. Behind us, the reception barn glowed with the last of the cleanup, Susan and her team carefully preserving the flowers that would brighten a women's shelter tomorrow. The leftover food would feed a homeless kitchen. The decorations would be donated to a community center. Nothing wasted, everything shared. Beauty with purpose. My first wedding had cost $400,000 and lasted 50 minutes. This one had cost $40,000 and would last a lifetime. The difference wasn't in the price, but in the foundation: truth instead of lies, partnership instead of performance, love instead of transaction. As the Connecticut hills gave way to highway, I closed my eyes and smiled. The girl from the trailer park had won, not by becoming what the Pattersons wanted, but by remaining who she'd always been: determined, kind, and absolutely certain of her own worth. "Thank you," I whispered to the universe, to the Pattersons, to everyone who'd told me I wasn't enough. They'd been wrong. I wasn't just enough, I was everything. And this time, I'd married someone who knew it too. Dear readers, if you've ever been told your blood isn't good enough, your background isn't impressive enough, or your dreams aren't realistic enough, I hope Andrea's story reminds you that they're wrong. Success isn't inherited, it's built. Worth isn't determined by birthright, it's proven by action. And the best revenge against those who try to diminish you isn't anger, it's excellence. What's your story of overcoming those who said you weren't enough? Share in the comments below and let's celebrate every person who's built their own throne instead of inheriting one. Like this video, if Andrea's triumph resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of underdogs who became champions and share this with someone who needs to remember their worth today. Thank you for joining me on this journey from rejection to redemption. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary. You already are.